Good evening. Thank you all for being here this evening. We have a full house. I think we have some important business this evening. As we get started, I just want to greet those that are watching online and thank them for joining us. And on behalf of myself and the City Council, we appreciate our citizens being involved in the work of the city. The role you play is very important, and we appreciate you. So thank you so much. As we get started tonight, we're going to begin with an invocation. And St. Luke's Hospital, Lee, are you here? I don't know. I'm not seeing the individual that's going to open us in prayer.
We have the fire chief chaplain or police chaplain back there.
We could do that.
I bet he can pray.
Thank you.
Not like putting you on the spot, right?
So it was less, it's actually less, and I don't see him here, so, okay. Would you like to share your name as we all stand to pray and your role as chaplain?
Chuck Egemeyer, Nampa Police Chaplain.
Chuck, thank you for opening us in prayer.
Our Father, today we are grateful for the community in which we live. We are grateful for the fact that you are over it, and you are in it, and you work through it. And I pray that you would give our City Council wisdom tonight as they deal with the issues that concern our city and our citizens. So bless our time together. Bless in the swearing in of our new chief. Bless the whole department, I pray. We give you thanks for your faithfulness, for your willingness to guide us and direct us if we choose to listen. We ask all of these things in the wonderful name of Christ. Amen.
Amen. Amen. And for the pledge? Thank you. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. You may be seated now. Okay, so let's start with roll call.
Rodriguez.
Here.
Bruner.
Here.
Hogaboom.
Here.
Levi.
Present.
Haverfield.
Here.
Skog.
Here.
And as we move into the agenda items, we do have one change to the agenda. That is that we are going to remove item 5.2, which is authorizing the installation of the no parking zone along the both sides of West Sanita Drive between West Toccola Street and North Midland Boulevard. So that will be removed from the agenda this evening. Are there any other proposed changes to the agenda? Seeing none, I would stand for a motion to approve the consent agenda as stated.
So moved.
Second.
Who is our second?
Rodriguez.
Victor. Okay. Councilman Rodriguez, I should say.
Victor's fine, ma'am.
Okay, roll call.
Bruner,
Yes.
Levi,
Yes.
Haverfield,
Yes.
Skog,
Yes.
Rodriguez,
Yes.
Hogaboom.
Yes.
The next item on our agenda is a special business item, and this is the opportunity to do the swearing in of Kirk Carpenter as the next fire chief for the city of Nampa. So I'm going to come down and let's move forward. As I start, we had a ceremony earlier this afternoon and had some wonderful comments that were made, both on behalf of former Chief Roberts and our new Chief Carpenter. And we look forward to the years ahead while we appreciate those that have been behind us and the work that's been done. This evening is just the swearing in, and so we'll get started and then we'll do the official pinning. And thank you, Chief Roberts, for your assistance. So come on up here.
Repeating after you?
No, but you're going to
Okay.
say, I do, I think.
I do.
Yes. So I, Kirk Carpenter, do solemnly swear that I will support the Constitution of the United States, the Constitution of the State of Idaho, and the laws therefore. And I will faithfully, honestly, and impartially discharge the duties of fire chief during my continuance therein to the best of my ability, so help me God.
I will.
Thank you. So, this is official, so let's do the pinning ceremony.
This is where we get the family involved. Family's a big part of the fire service and always will be. So they provide that comfort that we need when we come back. And so, Nicole, would you come forward? Nicole is Kirk Carpenter's wife. And then could we get Carrie and Cindy Carpenter, Kirk Carpenter's mom and dad. So they'll be assisting us in, if you'll just stand to the side of Nicole. And I've got to get rid of a little jewelry here. So we're running on a budget, so we're sharing. We're trying to be frugal and efficient in our budget. So
Thank you.
all over in TV land, we're sharing. I want it back, though. It's an honor for me to do this. He's a friend, and he's going to tear this place up for the good. I've never met anybody with more passion and desire to do what's right. His integrity level is through the roof. And so for me to walk away and hand my friend the reins of this department is just something it's like your own kid. So I'm grateful. Ms. Nicole. There we go. So with the badge, or with the badge, we also have the collar brass. There's 5 bugles on this. 5 bugles represents the chief's positions. What we like to think as the chief as you'll see the battalion, a division chief has 3 bugles, or a deputy chief has 4 bugles. A division chief has 3 bugles. A battalion chief has 2 cross bugles, and captains have 2 straight bugles. The bugles representing the fire services, that's the way that we used to make the calls. That's the way they used to send the signals and commands on a fire scene. And so what represents the chief, he has all the bugles. And with those people with honor and dignity who move up the ladder, he loans his bugles to those subordinates under his command and gives them the power to make decisions based on the chain of command. Kirk Carpenter has that ability to use people wisely. He has people that he can encourage. He strengthens them. He gives them self-confidence. And so these bugles represent somebody who will take care of them, and he provides them to people that he also knows that will take care of them. So for tonight, Chief Carpenter's mom and dad will pin the collar brass on. You can't slap it down on there.
Fingers. There we go.
You get to speak, I get to hug first.
Thank you very much. I can tell you honestly, I'm tired today. It's been an exciting day, and I'm proud. In the fire service, obviously, you set your goals, and I can honestly tell you that when I began my service, it was never to be a fire chief. It was to be a company officer and be in the field helping people. Through good mentoring and chance and some risks that I took in my career, it's led me to here. And as I developed in my career, I saw opportunity where I could better help the people that are out doing the job and helping the citizens of Nampa. And so I find that my gifts and skills can be used in a different arena, although I very much miss and admire what these men and women of the Nampa Fire Department do. I look forward to honorably serving you as well as this community. I am over the hill grateful and thankful for this opportunity, and I promise to not let this community down, this fire department, council, mayor. I appreciate it very much. I'm going to go enjoy some time with my family as you guys do business. I'm sorry, but you're welcome to join us later. I think I'm coming back. But it's exciting times here in Nampa. I'm going to miss my friend. So thank you for coming. Holy cow. This is an amazing turnout. I know some of you are here for other things, but I appreciate you as well. So thank you very much. Mayor and council, thank you. We'll do it quick and not cost too much.
Well, that's good. It allows a change of seats. All righty. We'll pause for just another minute to allow those to come in and that we're waiting to be seated. I'm not sure. So as we get started, we'll start with our first proclamation for this evening. And actually, this is a Cleaning for a Reason proclamation. And Renee, I think you were going to speak for a moment. If you want to make your way forward while I read this proclamation. So this is Cleaning for a Reason is a nonprofit that provides free professional house cleaning to cancer patients. Cleaning for a Reason matches any household with a woman, a man, or a child battling cancer with cleaning opportunities who are willing, cleaning companies who are willing to donate their time and services. Whereas cancer is very real and affects so many, so a simple house cleaning can be of assistance to cancer patients and allow these patients to focus on their health while the nonprofit focuses on the patients' homes during this time of need. For the patients and their families, this service is invaluable. And whereas Cleaning for a Reason has more than 1,200 volunteer cleaning companies and continues to grow every year as more companies participate. Together, they improve the lives of those stricken with cancer. There are millions of cancer patients who do not have the resources to hire an outside service to clean during this difficult time. And whereas Cleaning for a Reason must continue to help cancer patients and give back to the communities by making a difference in the lives of these individuals. A donation of any size is always greatly appreciated by Cleaning for a Reason in order to make this mission possible. I, Debbie Kling, Mayor for the City of Nampa, do hereby proclaim the week of April 18th through the 24th as National Cleaning for a Reason Week. Renee, thank you for coming forward.
Thank you, Mayor Kling. That was wonderful. That's precious. I really appreciate the opportunity to speak today. My name is Renee Dickinson. I'm with Scrub and Bubbles Cleaning, and I am honored to be a part of Cleaning for a Reason. A few years ago, my mom got sick and passed away of cancer. Before that, I had looked at Cleaning for a Reason, but because it's out of Dallas, Texas, I didn't see any reason to get involved. I didn't see how it could help Idaho. But after Mom got sick, during that time, my cleaners would come and clean for my mom. And it was such a gift to have them come in. They would sneak in, they would clean the house, they'd give me a hug, and then they'd sneak out. And I was able to just focus on her. So in that was such a precious opportunity for me to have that my cleaning company. But a lot of other people don't have a cleaning company. So after I went back to work, I knew I had to take another look at this, and I did get involved. And since then, we've been serving patients here in the area. The first patient I took was a gentleman who'd been sick for a long time. I thought when I sent my girls there that they might quit because it was a big job. But instead, I got calls from him telling me how we had changed his life. He was able to have friends and family over for the first time in years. And then I got calls from my girls telling me what a gift it was to be able to make that impact in somebody's life. So I just really appreciate the opportunity to be involved in the Cleaning for a Reason week, April 18th through the 24th. And in honor of my mom, Myrna Wright, I just thank you for this proclamation.
Here's your proclamation. You know, I love this community and the heart of the people to make a difference in the lives of others. Renee, thank you for doing so. Thank you. We had another proclamation that took place earlier today, and the county did this proclamation, and I won't read the whole proclamation, but I do want to, this is a reminder that April is National Child Abuse Prevention and Awareness Month, and it's important. You know, I'm going to read it because it's important. So Canyon County recognizes that children are the key to the county's future, success, prosperity, and quality of life, and while children are our most valuable resource, they are also our most vulnerable citizens. And whereas every child deserves to grow up in a healthy, safe, nurturing environment and have an opportunity to thrive, and child abuse and neglect. They cause psychological, emotional, and physical harm, which can create lifelong problems for victims of abuse. And whereas effective child abuse prevention strategies succeed because of the partnerships created amongst citizens, human service agencies, schools, faith communities, healthcare providers, civic organizations, law enforcement agencies, the prosecutor's offices, and the business community, and by recognizing that prevention starts with each of us. Whereas Canyon County, in encouraging citizens throughout the county to display pinwheels, so if you see the pinwheels, you'll know why they're there. It's a happy symbol of childhood during the month of April as part of the Pinwheels for Prevention campaign to create awareness of the need to prevent child abuse and neglect. And so this proclamation has been signed by the Canyon County Commissioners and also by Mayor Garrett Nancolis and myself in support of this Child Abuse Prevention and Awareness Month. So that concludes our proclamations for this evening, and the next item on the agenda is where Nampa residents wishing to speak on an agenda item or non-agenda item can come forth. And what I'd like to do is start with, is there anyone here to speak on a non-agenda item? And do we have our sign-up sheet? Darren, thank you so much. You are always coming to the rescue here. Thank you. Okay. So we had Renee. Okay, so we have, let's see, Ben Carpenter. Okay, so let's start.
Ben Campbell.
I'm sorry, Campbell. Ben, I apologize. So would you like, Darrell, did you want to do a brief introduction?
Yeah, if I would, just a quick introduction, because I told Ben he had 3 minutes. I want to, first of all, thank Councilman Rodriguez. He's actually the one, I sent some material out on Ben, and he invited Ben here to just report on a real honor. Ben is one of ours. He is from the city of Nampa. He also attends NNU. I see several other students out here too. So he's one of our, we'll really be proud. Anyway, he is one of 22 across the nation mechanical engineering students that are going to serve on the USA team, which is going over to Russia in August. And so I just thank you for being here and let you tell these folks a little bit what an honor this is and tell them what you get to do a little bit more. Thanks, Ben.
So my name is Ben Campbell, and I'm going to be talking a little bit about a competition that I'm going to be participating in later this August as a kind of conjunction with World Skills International and Skills USA. So first off, what are these organizations and what exactly do they do? So they're pretty much a solution or they work as a solution to help close the workforce development and skills gap that is between young people my age and large corporations and everything across the country and the world. Essentially, a lot of younger people my age, they either are indecisive and don't know what kind of career path they want to follow after high school or college, or they're scared to go to college, get a degree, and get some job in something that they're not quite sure that they are going to enjoy. And so these skills organizations, they work together to help kind of close that gap between young people, specifically students, and large corporations through a competition setting. Pretty much how it works is that they have corporations and industry leaders generate competitions based off of various real-world scenarios in whatever type of career field they're working in, whether it's engineering or welding or automotive technology, anything from a broad spectrum of different career fields, and let the students compete in each of these fields and competitions and see how well they would do in or in whatever field that they decide to compete in. And so there's different levels for these type of competitions. The biggest being World Skills, which, to put it very quickly, to describe it very quickly, is pretty much the closest non-athletic equivalent to the Olympics that you can get. Pretty much, it's a large competition with countries from all across the world. There's thousands of people that go to compete and prove how skilled and trained their youth are for their own country. in whatever type of career skills they want to show off. And then the United States, obviously, we also have our own version, which is Skills USA. It's very similar structure, except with just the United States and our territories, and we actually have more categories than the world competition, which is pretty nice. But recently, last summer, I won the summer 2018 category for mechanical engineering, and I'm headed to the world's competition in Kazan, Russia later this August with the rest of the World Skills team that is going to also compete in Russia in all their own categories like woodworking, automotive maintenance, welding, and all these different categories. Anybody have any questions at all?
Yeah.
I think it's wonderful what you're doing, and we're proud of you. Thank you.
Congratulations.
Congratulations.
If you look up Skills USA, World Skills online, it'll come up right there. They've got a website and everything.
Thanks, Ben.
So next on our agenda is Nathan Roslin. And Nathan, we have your address at 217 South Paroline Road, Nampa.
Yes.
And are you commenting on an agenda item or just a public comment?
Comment on the unfinished business of the panhandling signs.
Okay.
Since you said my address, I won't say it. Mayor Kling and City Council members, thank you for your time. My comments come on behalf of a growing group of members of the Nampa community. And if you're here standing with us on this issue, give a thumbs up to your awesome City Council. Thank you. For us, the issue is not signs themselves, rather it's about process and leadership. And speaking to the issues of process, there's much I'm sure I'm ignorant of. But what is clear is this issue is raised by one individual with one perspective, rooted in one theory of change, and upheld by one philosophy and belief about our neighbors facing poverty and homelessness. Communities are always more than one and require a process that values and seeks to listen to the whole and makes decisions that move the whole together toward a vision of betterment for the whole. From our vantage point, there seemed to be an insufficient amount of time to include other voices and perspectives. The issue with leadership is a sense that what is guiding the process is fear and simple opposition. We have heard statements like, we don't want to become Seattle, or research says that they'll just use the money for drugs and alcohol and criminalize our community. Fear prompts us to circle the wagons and assume a position of protection. Combine that with the nature of institutions to preserve the status quo, and growth is often eluded in favor of what we've always done. Fear can cause us to objectify people and situations, in a position that often leads to dehumanizing our neighbors. When we are not able to see our neighbors as human, we fail to act and lead in the best interest of us all. As great as we think Nampa is, we're not Seattle, and we'll probably never come close, and that's okay. Besides that, each of you were elected into leadership to lead us toward a vision of what we can become together, not to lead us by making decisions based on what we don't want to be. This isn't a theoretical pushback against rules and enforcement. In reality, leading toward a unifying vision does require ordinances and enforcement, and often requires a greater sacrifice of freedom for the individual in exchange for a greater good for the whole. If all you hear are people if all you hear are people you don't think want a sign, you're radically missing the point. So here's the point. Remember due process. There are people you need to listen to and see, and people who are already speaking about and acting on issues that impact those in difficult situations. These are folks who are friends with our neighbors struggling with poverty and homelessness, friends who eat with our neighbors who aren't sure of the source of their next meal, friends who serve in our local shelters, crisis care centers, food banks, church mission outposts, women's shelters, clinics, low-income schools, and mobile food centers. Friends who invite our neighbors holding the signs by name into their places of work and homes for coffee or a meal or conversation. They have names, and we know some of them. And remember, you're all elected to lead all of your community toward a better future, especially those in your community who are marginalized and who don't have access to power and privilege. Your decisions don't and can't change what we do or how we love our neighbor. We don't require an ordinance for that. But your decision could ensure our city leadership embodies a process that works to represent all of its valued community members and points toward a vision of who we're becoming together. Thank you.
Thank you, Nathan. And next on the list is Judy Moore. And Judy is at 2609 Sunnybrook Drive, Nampa. And I'll just say that while she's walking up so she doesn't have to give us her address. So, welcome, Judy.
Thank you. This is kind of nerve-wracking. I've never done this before. In response to the gentleman that preceded me, well, I guess I'm first supposed to say, address you, Madam Mayor, and all of you nice guys that I voted for, right? Yeah, that's what I'm supposed to do. Sorry, I don't have the protocol. Do I call you Madam Mayor or just Mayor?
Whichever is good.
Okay, all right. And I made up with Kenton, by the way, before the meeting, so just so you know, okay?
Good.
But I do think that this is a good point. And I proceeded by telling you that I am a full embracer of the verse that says, as much as you've done it unto the least of these, my brethren, you have done it unto me. I believe in that. I agree with it. Lived with a man that did that all the time. Well, he was my husband, so what can I say? But anyway, I'm here at your invitation, Mayor Kling, because I was saddened and puzzled by the objection of Kenton Lee to the no panhandling signs that were posted, which seemed actually somewhat gracious. They were. You did those, didn't you, Mr. Skog? I led the way. Yeah, I thought that was pretty cool. The quality of life in Nampa is second to none, and it would be a shame to allow panhandling and homeless folks to establish residence on the streets of this fair city. Now, just so you know, I'm from Seattle. I lived there from 1952 when it was 250,000 people, and I tell you right now, there's no way I could go back. And you know, for people that are hurting, this community is hog heaven for them. I mean, think of all the places we have. We have Boise Rescue Mission, Love Inc., the Salvation Army, Nampa Care House, numerous food banks, I was told there were 7, and many churches with their own outreach programs, and hawkers where a needy person can eat for free because a local businessman has told the LeBarons to put it on his bill, to name just a few. I've been a pastor's wife for 47 years and leading the congregation at Franklin Community Church for 8 years. It became very clear that the folks that really want help don't get mad when you suggest they go to Love Inc. or somewhere else where they can get real help and not just instant fixes. Franklin gave generously to Love Inc. so they could send needy and hurting folks there, as they did not have the programs or resources to help them on their own. Folks that want instant gratification for addictions and other life-controlling issues were not happy when they were encouraged to seek help at those organizations like Love Inc. Case in point, church phone was forwarded to our home. Call came from a man who said he needed his cell phone paid as he had medical problems and needed to be able to call the doctors. I was the voice on the phone that directed him to contact Love Inc. 2 weeks later, a call came again, and I recognized his voice. I asked him if he was the guy with the cell phone issue. When I reminded him that the church did not have resources to just hand over money, he yelled at me and cursed at me and told me that a friend of his had been helped by my husband, who could never say no to a person in need, even when it was to enable someone else, even after Lois Tuppy told him that wasn't a good thing to do, but he never minded, so Darrell knows him. So it is hard enough already to get folks to go downtown. If they find that they're going to be confronted by panhandlers and other needy folk, they will just not come there. I, for one, I mean, he's already talked about Seattle, but I don't want us to become like some of those big cities where you can't do that. Got that. And anyway, Mr. Lee, I'm going to give you my donation now after I talk to you, okay? Thank you. I just think you guys need to do something, because David Ferdinand told me you don't even have an ordinance about this, so get busy.
Thank you, Judy, and I'm glad you guys talked. That was good. It's very special. Okay, Carol Hoffman? And Carol, we have you down at 6470 Sunrise Avenue. Thank you.
My hands are shaky, so I couldn't write very well. Mayor Kling and city council members, I want to thank you for just allowing me to voice my story. I am greeting everyone in the audience as well. I'm a retired educator for Idaho Schools. I have been a freelance writer for Idaho Press Tribune and for other magazines. Love the rural lifestyle, have lived in Nampa for well over 25 years, and am also from Seattle area. And I don't know your name, but I want to add and confirm what I heard her say on the signs, that I do believe the wording was very gracious. I felt like the words on the signs offered a place that if people want to help, they can. I myself donate to Boise Rescue Mission. I donate to Love Inc. I donate to churches. There are places to go, but I'm not here to talk about that tonight or who I am. I am here to talk about the other face of panhandling, and that's why I'm a little nervous. It's been 10 years since the last recession, and while grocery shopping at a local Walmart, I went in to grocery shop, and there was a man that came pretty close to me to ask for money. And, you know, I just said no, and then his son was behind him, and, you know, he also asked for money, and I said, no, not at this time, whatever. I just wanted to go in and do my grocery shopping. Well, you know, it was a little unnerving as I watched the two of them work the parking lot of this grocery store and go to, at that time I was younger, so to elderly people. They also went to a woman that had a child in the grocery cart, right there, a toddler in the grocery cart, and I was very upset by that, but I didn't do anything about it. And then that was about 3 o'clock. Next time I went grocery shopping was in the morning, and okay, I thought I had 3 minutes, but anyway, 3 times before I called the manager, got an assistant manager, ended up having to go up the rank to the manager. And I just want you to know that it was very, very disconcerting. I believe it can be very dangerous. When you come up to a public person and are asking for money or goods, I think that's way too close to my personal space. And I love people, and anyone who knows me knows that I care 100% for Idaho's youth and for anyone who is homeless. But I will donate in the entities that I want to. I do not want to be accosted, and that is how I have felt. And I hate to see the traffic held up in Seattle while people throw out money. I don't know if they do drugs. I don't know anything like that. I just don't like to be personally accosted. And so I'm here to voice that.
Thank you, Carol.
Thank you.
I appreciate it. So those are the only ones that we had signed up. Is there someone in the audience that had intended to sign up to speak for 3 minutes on an agenda or non-agenda item? Okay, seeing none, we will move on to the next item on our agenda, which is mayor and council comments. And I just, you know, one thing I wanted to mention to the council was today was the Valley Regional Transit Executive Board meeting and the Executive Committee and the board meeting. And one thing that came out today was that they are going to be looking at a 4% increase in, I think, in their due structure and in some of their, what they're asking. And so I just wanted to give us a heads up that they will be looking for an increase. I know last year we didn't go ahead and fund that, but I just, since I heard it today, I thought we'll just let everybody know that that will be coming down the pike. Sandy, you were also there. Is there any other comment, takeaway from that meeting?
Thank you, Mayor. Yes, there is the increase, and I'm going to be meeting with Councilwoman Clegg from Boise, because if you saw in the paper, they're looking at proposing that they have a dedicated, I think it's a 5% of their property taxes, not their overall budget, that will actually go to funding. And so she wants to talk to me, and looking forward to hearing what she has to say because I like to gather the information completely before I make a decision.
Good. And I did remind VRT, the same communication I had this morning with our directors, and that is stewardship. Rather than just looking for increases, we need to make sure that we have efficiency and stewardship in everything that we do. And so we had that discussion at the executive meeting today during the finance section. Are there any other reports from the council, from any commission meetings or anything that we need to be aware of?
Attended an arena football game, Idaho Horsemen. It was very interesting and entertaining. If the public's interested in arena football, check them out. I get no money from it, so it's just a plug. Want people to spend money in Nampa and know that it exists. So go Idaho Horsemen. They're 2-0. They're the only undefeated team in their division right now. So there you go.
And I think their next game is Sunday.
I don't know who the quarterback is. They didn't let me be quarterback. So, but that's okay. That's all right.
Mayor Kling.
Yes.
Last week I attended the Snake River Elementary School science projects. And you never know what the kids are going to say. This is the 5th grade class. In fact, some of the girls are here that's going to give a presentation, a crosswalk, and safety report. One little Hispanic kid, when I talked with him, he asked me, because he had told me I was a city councilman. Of course, he had no idea what that was. And then he asked me if I spoke Spanish. And I went, what? I said, yes, I do. So we carried on in Spanish. And I thought, isn't this cool? This young man is bilingual in the 5th grade at Snake River, and he says, oh, we speak it all the time. So thank you, Snake River. I think that's just awesome. But the kid asking me if I spoke Spanish, I went, should be the other way around. But thank you, that's all.
That's awesome. If there are no other comments from council, we'll move straight in. That's a perfect segue into, we've got a communication today from the crosswalk and safety report for Snake River, from Snake River Elementary School. So I think we have some people here today, is that right?
Yes.
And you can take that microphone on if you like, so girls can talk.
Yeah, we'll put it down, I think. Okay, so hi, my name is Christina Clark. I'm Natasha Johnson. We are 5th grade teachers at Snake River Elementary, and our students will be presenting to you guys. So in February, we assigned a project for our students where we asked them to identify a problem or a need within our school or community. The students were required to research a solution and propose a solution based off that research, and then create a visual representation for that project. So on that note, these are our 4 wonderful girls, and they actually wanted to introduce themselves to you guys. So.
Good evening, my name's Emerson.
My name is Nevaeh.
My name is Sierra.
And my name is Taylor.
We are 5th grade students from Snake River Elementary, and today we will be presenting why we need a crosswalk on 11th Street.
A crosswalk is a mark for the road where pedestrians have a right of way to cross. And currently this is our crosswalk at Snake River Elementary.
Snake River needs a crosswalk by 11th Street because kids and community members are being put in danger by speeding cars.
Problems we face without a crosswalk painted.
See how fast those cars are going? They're going way too fast and kids could get badly hurt. Mr. Jensen is in the bright yellow jacket and he'll be crossing the kids.
Sierra and Taylor interviewed 2 5th grade students about this problem, and their names are Hayden and Ella.
Hayden said it would make her feel safer if the crosswalk was there because most of the drivers don't stop. She wants to be safe and wants the other kids crossing to stay safe too.
And Emma said there should be a crosswalk there because she has been put in danger as well as others crossing the road.
students feel like they are in danger when they try to cross in the morning and after school?
Drivers aren't always going the speed limit or paying attention, so they could hit someone crossing the road. The hit pedestrian could then sue the driver that hit them. I wouldn't want to be sued, and neither would you.
Parents and teachers are worried for the students and children that cross the road throughout the day. Parents and teachers care for the safety of children, and no crosswalk makes them nervous.
Community members are also put in danger when they cross the road, especially kids and teens that go to the skate park to play.
Now that you know about the cons of not having a crosswalk, let us talk to you about the benefits of having a crosswalk.
There are many solutions to the crosswalk problem, but here are the ideas our team has come up with that will benefit Snake River Elementary students the most.
A lighted crosswalk. The Highway Transportation Department will maintain it if it is broken.
A person on duty longer.
School zone signs.
The main solution to our problem is installing a lighted crosswalk across 11th Street. A crosswalk provides drivers with a highly visible indicator that pedestrians are crossing the road and need to prepare to slow down and stop.
A staff member currently is on duty from 7:55 to 8:15 a.m. The time should be adjusted to 8:25 a.m. for the students that come to school a few minutes late so they have additional safety crossing the road.
A school zone sign is very helpful. On 11th Street, drivers go really fast. We as students cannot make people slow down, but we can let them know through a sign that they have to slow down.
Here's a video of our solution.
Thank you for listening to our presentation.
Girls, before you're seated, I have a pen for you. Thank you so much for coming. That was an excellent presentation. Come on up.
And it's all because of our amazing teachers.
Thank you, amazing teachers. So I have a
Mayor-
question.
Mayor, if you could, have the parents and the family stand up that are here for the girls.
Good. That was an excellent presentation. I have a question. Is there not a school speed zone sign there?
We do not have one going across 11th Street, so it's on the other side of our building where there's the skate park. We do on the actual road, but not on the 11th Street side, informing drivers that there is a school there and that there are kids crossing. So that was why they had that's why they identified this as a problem for them.
Thank you. So the right people are in the room from the city, and they have duly taken note and will be looking at both traffic safety light potential. Many times that's a grant. And then also, let's get a sign up, like ASAP, to make sure that it's signed, because that's something we can do immediately. The light takes a little longer, but thank you. We've got staff
Mayor,
on it.
if I could ask Tom Points a question. Tom, now that you've heard the girls talking about the issues of safety at the schools, how long does that light stay? The light stay open for the kids crossing? Is it Garrity?
Yeah, there's a hawk signal on Garrity. Yeah, that when they push the button, it'll flash the lights.
So how, is it 30 seconds or is it longer than that?
It's timed according to distance and according to the average walk speed. Probably per second. What are they, Dan? 3.5 feet per second. Yeah, it's probably about 25 seconds or something like that.
Okay, so you have to get right along when you cross that street.
If you're
Yeah.
our age.
Our age, yes, by all means. Get along means slow, but anyway, I just want to talk to you about that. Now, the girls actually wanted to meet you, and so if you just turn around and say hi to him, and he's our director. Thank you, that's all I have.
Yeah, we'll take a look at that too, Counselor.
Thank you, sir.
Well, Mayor, Council, I think Councilman Rodriguez and I, we did a walk audit. Do you remember that? With the AARP, so it's a very nerdy thing to do, but we did a walk audit and tested the pedestrian friendliness, and I noticed that crossing that street, it seemed a little quick, the timing, so for a fast-moving street, and it was long, and I noticed that some of us had a challenge. And there's one other thing. I remember when you cross the street to the park, there's sidewalks that wrap around the park, but there's no pathway that leads into the park directly from the center from where that crosswalk is. And sorry to throw that out here, but it's just filed away. That was one thing that was noted, that or someone on a wheelchair or something like that, as far as accessibility into the park, they would have to go all the way around the park on the sidewalk if they didn't want to go on the grass area. And I know pathways can be expensive, but it seemed like that might be a somewhat low-cost, high-return access point. There's the Rose Garden area kind of in the middle, and then that pathway stops in the center. It seems like maybe that should go the way. That's maybe more Parks and Rec. Maybe, Darren, we can talk about that. So,
Which is,
anyhow, sorry to throw all that out, but since we're talking about
and that's a little
friendliness.
different than what this request
Yes.
is, which is
Yeah.
the school zone on 11th. So we won't lose that.
Yeah, all of the above. Yeah.
So let's segue right into staff communications and Tom Points.
Madam Mayor,
I'm sorry.
is there, do you folks want to stay for this, or I just thought if you wanted to go, you?
You are welcome if you guys would like to
Gotta go.
Thank you so much for being here. Thank you.
Okay, Mayor, Council, so yeah, thank you for the feedback on the crosswalks. We always do appreciate that, and we will certainly go take a look at that particular location. So safety of the kids it's huge for this community, so thanks. So on to the staff report. I just want to give you a heads up that at the next council meeting, we'll be bringing forward a new business item for the waters of the U.S. So EPA is looking at revising the definition of a water of the U.S. So we're putting together a letter that'll come forward in the new business item next time. Just kind of, it doesn't affect anything that we're doing at the wastewater plant, but it does help strengthen our case to that the Phyllis Canal is not a waters of the U.S. So we are going to write a letter of support and bring it forward to you at the new business item the next time. So there's a lot of talk about budgets lately, and so I just wanted to take a couple minutes and talk about how projects for utilities and streets are added into the budget. It's a data-assisted program that we've put together. We've got our master plans for streets, for water, for sewer, for irrigation, and those all have projects listed in them in years that they're needed. So we take all of those and compile them, and that's our unconstrained model of projects. And we go through our, within the Public Works team, our division heads, they actually go through and use our GIS system to vote on all of these projects. And we rank them based on safety, capacity, conditions, and economic impacts. And so once those scores are all settled, we fund the ones that have the highest return or the highest amount of points until we run out of the budget, estimated budget. So we constrain it at the very end. So you have some information in your packet about how that works. We're working on that right now. In fact, we've got a meeting tomorrow with the team, and you'll see these projects in the budget in the next couple months. Next item is pressurized irrigation. So irrigation waters started to enter the canals starting this week. It generally takes a couple weeks for the full pressurized system to come online. We go through and make sure that there's no water line breaks, and we flush out the system. So about mid-April is when we're anticipating a full use of the system. Also, we're happy to announce we've got some more irrigation pump stations that we're putting in. So here, got those two, and this is maps in your packet. These will allow for cleaner water in the zone that we've circled in the black down in this part of town, southwest part of town. Also, we have a new well, locust irrigation well coming in at the bottom of the page, which will help with the irrigation pressure in this area. So since we've started putting in irrigation filters in 2016, we've put in 2 to 3 of them a year. This will be our 11th installation that we've once we get these 2 in. We had more on utilities. We had a sewer line that collapsed, but partially collapsed. That are, I'll show you a picture of it here. So this is on 4th Street North over by 17th. There's a sewer line that we had to do a routine inspection every year as part of the asset management program and look for damages to our lines. So there was this one was partially collapsed. We were able to secure a contractor to come in and fix the pipe, and the pipe's already repaired. It was about $12,000 for that. And then, so we're gonna come in, and we've also noticed that this is an old clay pipe, so some original part of town. So we've noticed with some damage on that other sections, we're gonna come in and line the pipe between the manholes. So just wanted to let you know that, you know, we've got some aging infrastructure, and this is our plan to fix it. And the last item, which I'm gonna have Jeff present, is the workforce plan for streets. We've asked all the sections to put together a workforce plan in Public Works. Where do you envision yourself in 5 years? So Jeff and his team has done an excellent job. I want to congratulate them on putting this together. You know, I've challenged them with trying to find ways to be efficient and save costs. And so they've come up with some really good ideas here, and I was impressed by the study. So we found some operational savings. I don't want to steal Jeff's thunder, but about $300,000 worth of operational savings. So in the budget, we're planning on lowering that line item and increasing the personnel sum. So there'll be a no net change. What we found through Jeff's study is that we've been losing, at least in the streets department, 1 employee per year over the past 8 years to other agencies after we get them trained up, and then they go to other agencies for higher pay. So they're about 10% in that particular group behind the market. So so you'll see this is just information only. We encourage questions and comments to help us refine this plan, and the actual numbers will come forth in the budget when we bring that to you. Is there any questions I can answer before I turn to Jeff?
Great job, thank you.
Mayor, City Council, I know it's a busy night, so I will be brief. Hard act to follow for those kids, by the way, so they did a good job. So this is a FY20 workforce plan. I'm representing 3 divisions up here. The superintendents are here and some of the staff. So Monty Hazel is from the airport division. Doug Adams is from the fleet division here. And Dawn Barr is from our streets division. And they all 3 do a fantastic job. They have some of their staff here too. Appreciate all the good work they do.
Could the staff raise your hands? Whoa. Thank you for being here.
So Tom kind of pushed this process forward and got us going, and I really appreciate that. We started meeting about 4 months ago, and in our conversations, they naturally are innovative and trying new things and saving money and doing a great job in their own divisions. But we narrowed it down to 3 primary goals. One is to enhance customer service and operational productivity. The second is to retain and recruit quality employees. And the last is to address immediate and long-term facility space needs. So looking at customer service and operational productivity, this is one of the, Mayor, you're talking about this over the next year. This is one of the things we want to hit, is improving quality of service, level of service, but also saving money. So just to give you some examples, streets, Dawn Barr presented this last council meeting about the money saved for implementation of the salt and the salt brine. process and reducing magnesium chloride. We save $40,000 a year there. Chip seal innovations, you might not know this, but we are adding in residential chip seal to the streets department job this summer, which is basically doubling the amount of chip seal they ordinarily do. And going into the neighborhoods isn't easy. Cars tracking oil all into driveways and things like that is extremely difficult. So they're adding that, and that's saving the city about $100,000. It's 10 cents at least less a square foot. They're doing 1 million square feet. On top of that, last year they sent some people out to a training, came back, tweaked their equipment, and saved 9% on the rock application, which you've noticed there wasn't as many piles of rock. Sweeping was less, oil was less, and they saved money that way. So we have $120,000 per year savings in the rocks in chip seal. And then intelligent transportation. So right now we have to send people out to each individual intersection to adjust timing. And Ken Nutt does a great job in his team. But they have to get in the van, go out and rush hour traffic to these intersections where we could have a remote location, and we could, through a central software system, work that so it'd just be a couple minutes of tweaking a system from that remote traffic management center. So we're working on that in the next 2 years, and we want to implement that, saving at least $20,000 a year in maintenance and operations costs. With Fleet, they have an extremely talented crew down there. They work on a number of different types of machines. It's pretty amazing if you haven't done a walkthrough down there. They have 2 vehicles in every bay, from fire trucks to lawnmowers to police vehicles. And so they added 4-wheel alignments and emissions testings in-house, which is $5,000 a year saving. They upfit police fire vehicles, so they have to really strip down those new Tahoes and put in Kevlar door lining. For the K9 units, they rip the whole thing out, put the K9 unit in the back, all the technology, they do that in-house. This year they had about double the amount that they usually have, and they just absorbed that and did it through overtime and just through hard work. But they're going to see that increase every year, which is saving the city about $12,000 per vehicle and about $5,000 per motorcycle. They'd never done motorcycles before. They just started and did it this year, which, if you see them, pretty amazing. So with that, they've saved $73,000 there. Our airport has added landscape and more wildlife maintenance to their workload. They purchased a mower last year, so they're going to be saving $14,000 a year in landscape maintenance. Grant administration is increasing every year, and it's going to increase more because we want to go after the FAA dollars, and they have done a great job of pursuing that in the past. So that's $6,000 at least, very conservative a year. And then since 2013, the airport has added 22 hangar units, but they have the same staff. So with that, they have to adjust doors, and they have to maintain the buildings and the asphalt and all that. So they're going to incorporate $15,000 more in-house and not need to outsource that. All in all, $35,000 worth of savings. If you add all that up, it's approximately $300,000 per year savings through innovation and operational efficiency. And it's really a testament to the good work they do. Goal 2 is, so we want to retain and recruit quality employees. So we want to continue to foster a positive work culture, professional work culture. As we fund and we budget, we want to know how many people we need and want to get ahead of proactive on growth. And then we want to offer competitive compensation. We did a salary survey, and we found that salaries are typically 3 to 19% low. Probably more like 12% is in the middle of the average, somewhere around there. And Tom mentioned to reduce turnover since 2011, just the streets department, and there's other divisions that have had more of an impact on this. They've lost 8 people, which is about a full year's salary to hire another person, to train them, to go through Roadmasters and the road certification process. So if you add all that, it's about $400,000 over 8 years. And they have just left for lateral positions in different agencies. They're not better positions, they're just more pay. So if we could hang on to at least half of those people, you see we're saving a significant amount of money. And with that, the adjustments to pay we want to take out of those Goal 1 savings. Savings we want to incorporate back into projects and back into staffing so that we're not asking for additional funding in this budget season. Goal 3 is, and I'll just quickly mention this, current space is at capacity. So we are helping the facilities department right now in their master planning process and giving them the information you need. Monty's in the middle of airport master plan at the airport, where they're going to give us all sorts of really great strategies for growth out there, as far as if the city should purchase or build hangar units. Also, the airport terminal building in the future and expansion of that. So with that, those are our goals, and there is an executive summary in the front of yours. It's just a 2-page summary that goes through this in kind of in a brief of this presentation. So with that, I'll take any questions, or if you have any questions for the division superintendents.
Mayor Kling, thank you. I appreciate the fact that you want to change the direction regarding employees and projects. We need the employees. But what is a priority? Is a priority to give them sufficient increase in salary and then the streets, or is it the streets and then the employees? I would consider the employees first. What is there a fine line there, Jeff?
I'm going to say that would be, I know Tom and I have talked about it, and it's a priority of ours, is the employees.
Okay, good, thank you.
I just want to say I'm extremely proud of the work that is being done here. You know what, it's one thing to share it, right, to say, guys, this is the direction we need to go. It's a whole nother thing when you guys embraced it, you walked out and you did it. And that is to be commended. And I just want to say to the team, to all of our streets and fleet and airport, you guys are doing an amazing job. And I am so proud of you. I just am incredibly proud of you. It's like, I think it's like a parent going, wow. Because you know what I see when the ingenuity, you're being, as Jeff said, the innovation, the idea to come up with ideas and figure out how can we save money. I just have to say that Public Works, you guys have taken this and you've applied it in an amazing way. And what they've done is they've figured out how to fund the increase in those wages by not coming to say we need more money. We're going to save so that we can do the increase so that we can still put funding towards streets. It's how do we get it done? And you guys are a shining example of that, and I'm proud of you. Thank you. Great, great work. And I just thank every single one of you for the work that you do. Fleet, you guys, Doug, you do amazing work. Thank you. And to streets, I mean, you guys are just an awesome team. The entire group. And Monty, thank you for being here. I'm glad you're here. Stay with us. You're doing a good job.
Don't fly
it's
out.
good.
Don't fly out.
Well, he had a chance to fly out and he didn't.
Yes.
And I am so incredibly thankful. So
80% of the airports are subsidized by cities. We're one of the 20% that do not need subsidy to get by. We're self-funding airports. Monty does a great job.
Wow.
So.
good job. Thank you, guys. While we are on staff communications, we're going to go ahead and have one more staff communication before we move into public hearings, and because this is not long, but I'd like to go ahead and allow those that are here for this to be able to leave. So Amy is going to be sharing ever so briefly a report on Main Street. A number of us just came back from the Main Street Conference, and she's going to give us a quick overview.
Good evening, Mayor and Council. Yes, as the mayor said, we being Mitch Minetti, Mayor Kling, myself, we're all in Seattle last week for a few days, funded by a hometown boy who made it big in Seattle, Kevin Daniels. He funded us to go and attend, and Roger Volkert, is that how you say your last name? He's here, and he's in the pictures as well. He's with our Historic and Preservation Commission. And so he attended as well. Am I missing anybody? And Robin Sellers from Economic Development. So Beth, keep me in line if I say anything wrong. So Main Street is a big deal. And it's a, from what I understand, I'm just learning more about what the program is. Nampa has, we are a Main Street. There's only one of 4, I believe, cities within Idaho that are considered a Main Street. And Main Street's been around, it'll be 40 years. Next year. So they have a program that really started as a way to wrap arms around historic preservation, and it's morphed into a tool for economic vitality. So these stats were in your packet, and they were they just show the really where the rubber hits the road. That dollar for dollar, pound for pound, investing in your Main Street community is going to pay huge dividends. So Ed McMahon had shared this in simple terms: if you don't have a healthy downtown, you don't have a healthy city or town. And I think Beth has shared multiple times that when investors and developers come to our town, they want to see what is the heartbeat of our community, the downtown. Is it healthy? Is it thriving? Or is it not? And so Main Street is a way for our community to receive access to additional funds, right? And has a great program for us to follow and help our downtown businesses. Is that right? Okay.
So that said, we will be coming forth with some recommendations, and actually we have some exciting news that's going to be coming forth on Main Street, and we'll let that come out in about the week after this, I think. It's just a fun announcement that I'm very excited to share, but we will also be moving forward with the implementation of the board for Main Street. We've been a Main Street community for what, 10, Beth, how many years? Okay, so not that long, but long enough. And you know what? We've never really moved it forward. We're going to move it forward because it's when you look at the stats and you see cities all across the United States and what they're doing for their downtowns, it is amazing. And what's amazing to me is that they're much smaller than we are. I look at some theaters that have been saved that were able to raise, there's one over $650,000, and it was a town with a 50% poverty rate that had 5,000 residents. But they stepped up, they decided it was important, and they came together as a community. And it's time that we do that. And so we're going to lead the way through the Main Street organization, and we're going to get our downtown done. So, but it's not going to be, it's going to be us coming together and getting the community engaged. And just in case anyone wonders, there's a difference between the Downtown Business Improvement District and Main Street. The downtown, the BID, the Downtown Association, now has, the board is in place, they're working on their strategic planning, but Main Street will be a separate organization that guides the redevelopment of downtown. And the reason for that is that it involves everybody in our community. It's not just the downtown business owners. They've worked hard for a long time. They need the community to come around them and get our downtown revitalized. It's going to take all of us. So we'll be coming forward with some recommendations, and then we'll be letting you know about this exciting announcement that's going to come. Thank you, Amy. Do you guys have any questions? Okay, so it is now about 12 minutes after 7, and at 7 it is the time for our public hearings. So the additional new business items will be moved. We'll address those in a little bit. So our first public hearing for the evening is item number 6.1 on the agenda. This is a proposed Nampa City Code text amendment to sections of the Nampa City Code Titles 6, 7, 9, and 10. And I believe Norm Holm is going to be presenting on this.
Thanks, Norm. You got this in an email. I don't know if you...
Mayor and Council, you've each received a staff report on these amendments. There's 33 of them. Some of them are in other sections of the code besides zoning. They actually include titles 6, 9, and 10. 10 is the zoning title. These have gone before the Planning and Zoning Commission, and the Commission has recommended approval of all of them but 3 that were listed in the staff report. And I guess starting off with this, I would ask, how would you like to go about this? Would you like to look at each 33 of these, or just the ones that, I'm assuming that you read through the staff report and saw the 33 amendments. I hope that you did. A lot of times we do come to these and we answer questions that were in the staff report answered. So I hope but we're willing to do that as well. So we can go through them one by one, and I can generally summarize each of those as we go, and you can ask questions or insert input as we go, or we can just open it up to you to raise questions, and we'll address the ones that you have discussion that you want to present on them. So I would ask that. I have handed out to you a copy of an email and some just suggested changes that were proposed by David Bills, and we reworked some of his suggestions into the attached page that are listed there to show you how those would be revised into those 3 sections of the code that are listed, or 2, I guess there's just 2 there that are listed. And how would you like to do that? Would you like to start and just go down 1 through 33 and go as they go, or?
Would you be reading them as they are noted on here,
I would
or?
not. I would actually go through the staff narrative that's listed,
Okay.
starting on page 4. And we could look at them individually in that manner, and I would just kind of review the statements that are made in each of the amendments.
Okay.
And then if you want to look at the actual code sections,
Let's go ahead and just go through, if you guys don't mind. Let's just go through the staff narrative, and would that be okay with the council? It'll take a minute, but if you can quickly go
Okay.
through that, then we can pause if there are any questions.
so the first amendment is entitled 6220 licensing. This came about at the request of a homeowner raising concerns over the fact that we only allowed 2 dogs per residence without a conditional use permit. She indicated that a number of the communities around us allow 3 dogs, and so we threw this in at the interest of that resident, citizen, to see how that would receive, as far as the mayor and council here. The planning commission reviewed that, and it was their opinion that they didn't want to make that change. They wanted to leave it at 2 dogs as is. And so that was one of the ordinances that was proposed to leave as is and to delete that amendment as far as the planning commission was concerned. Item number 2, stopping, standing, or parking prohibited in specific places. 7216. These amendments propose the repeal of the word stand from paragraph A of the section per the police department's request, and adding with their blessing a line number 18 that controls parking in front of a mailbox. And so that is amendment number 2. Amendment number 3 is residing on public right-of-way. This is a change that strengthens the disallowance of residing in vehicles only on city streets. Previously, our code did not speak to that in the right-of-way section. This is not a zoning ordinance. This is in the right-of-way ordinance. I think is administered through the street department or engineering, excuse me. And what we were proposing is that shall be unlawful for any person to reside or stay in more than 24 hours in an unauthorized dwelling unit on a public right-of-way. And then there's some definitions along with that. The Planning Commission looked at that, and they suggested that maybe the 24 hours, but we never had any kind of ordinance previously stating that you could do that for 24 hours. They thought that perhaps you should be able to do it for longer than 24 hours, and they recommended 72 hours. And my understanding is that they were thinking on the line of, say you have family coming in for the weekend, extended stay, Friday, Saturday, Sunday, and they have their manufactured home with them or trailer that they're pulling behind their car, and they want to stay with you. You don't have accommodations in the house. They thought maybe it would be okay for them to have that on the street for 72 hours.
So could you clarify for me on that one? So if someone were in a motorhome, right, you pull up your motorhome in front of your home, and someone's staying there because they are visiting from out of town, is that, because it almost sounded as though sleeping in your car, but actually the way this is worded, could you provide the clarity? Does that also apply to a motorhome versus a vehicle, just a standard?
That's my understanding. This would apply to, well, as vehicles, which would include cars, trucks, trailers, office, camp horse, what is that? I'm not sure what, horse, I guess you could camp on your horse, vehicle transport and utility-type vehicles, buses, RVs, towed pop tents, camper shells, fifth wheels, boats, and other portable and temporary shelters, including but not limited to tents and boxes. So,
Norma, Mayor, if I may, Norma, question. So how's this going to be enforced? If a neighbor is upset about whatever is in front of a neighbor's, so who's going to enforce it?
good question. It's not a zoning ordinance, so it wouldn't be zoning staff, but it comes under the right-of-way section of the code. So
I guess,
I would
yes.
think it's code enforcement.
Code enforcement, so they would contact code enforcement, then code enforcement officer would go out and purvey the situation.
they'd be
Okay.
given a citation for being there too long.
Okay. And as far as education process, if there is a change as far as, I mean, whether it's 24, 48, or whatever hours, how do we plan on educating the Nampa citizens on this?
Well, I guess there could be some publicity offered through the newspaper. I mean, we could invite them in to discuss that.
So Aaron, you'd love to put that in your paper? Okay. Okay. All right, thanks, Norm.
Mayor?
Yes.
Thank you. Kind of to follow up on what Councilman Brunner was saying, over the past 3.5 years that I've served, I have had numerous phone calls of frustrated neighbors that their neighbors or across the street, whatever, there have been vehicles parked on the roadway, and they're there for a very long time, and it's evident that they're not there for 72, 48 hours. They're there for weeks on end. They're setting up their sanitation outside of their trailers, et cetera. And it's very frustrating. But the thing I'm not sure with what Daniel Badger just said, my understanding, and I've talked with the police chief about this as well, and code enforcement, and I hope I have this correct. Code enforcement deals with what's on your property, and the police department deals with what's on the street. Is that correct?
Well, kind of. I think what he's talking about tonight, that would be more of a code enforcement issue. You know, if they had open sewage and stuff running on the road, or been parked there for more than 72 hours, that would either be code enforcement or the police. Either one would handle that to tow that vehicle.
Thank you. And to follow up on that, the frustration from the neighbors has been is there hasn't been anything in the code that can be enforced. And so I'm really appreciative to see something happening. I know in my area, we constantly see this large bus that's converted into a motorhome. It moves every 2 to 3 days. And this really large boat in the same thing, it's been moving every 2 to 3 days. And I think they've got to be tired of doing that. But I can understand you can't afford storage.
So the decision point on this is what hours should be set, 24, 72, or 48. And the commission's recommendation was 72. But it could be different, depending on how you decide.
Mayor?
Yes.
Question on someone parking in a handicap spot in downtown. I've heard a couple complaints. Would this pertain to that? Because there's no 2-hour limitation on the handicap parking,
Are they
right?
residing there?
That's what I hear. In our tree lighting, I heard that they couldn't get this person to move because their vehicle was still parked in the handicap. So they're making use of the handicap spot as a place to just live in the truck.
Apply there as public right-of-way, yes.
Okay.
Okay. So I guess we will go ahead and proceed, and it's just food for thought on this one as we get ready to vote what we want to do with that one when someone makes a motion.
Okay, amendment number 4 is a bunch of definitions. During these code amendments, as indicated here in the summary, we noted that it would be cleaner to have varying definitions in other code sections all populated with the same master zoning code definitions listed in one section. And also we're proposing here is to remove some redundant and replace some definitions that are listed there. And I won't go through all of those, but they're listed if you have any you'd like to discuss. Amendment number 5 deals with the construction and use to be stated in applications. And, this amendment is intended to strengthen the requirement to conform a use or construction project to approved plans or certificates of occupancy. And that is, find the right one here. Any questions on that? It just puts that entitlement or certificate of occupancy statement in there that requires those documents to be stated in the application. So it's just kind of a reference, improved understanding. Number 6, it has to do with the vision triangle. This came forth through city engineering and code enforcement, and it's just updating the section in relation to the vision triangle that's stated in the zoning ordinance. And Daniel would be happy to answer any specifics on that, I'm sure. But it's just redefining the vision triangle, and it's formalizing that as a new drawing in the zoning ordinance. Actually, there's 2 drawings. Okay. Number 7. Go through my pages here. Professional public mini storage facility design regulations. So again, this is a clarification amendment to make reasonable the standards for mini storage facilities in RP and BN zones as presently constituted. In part, they reflect the city's design review related practice applied to storage facilities, whereby primary visual interest is given to those portions of buildings visible from a public right-of-way. This already exists and applies to the RP and BN zones, and this is just some tweaking of what's stated in the code presently. And there's also discussion that hasn't become a part of this yet, that maybe we should consider extending these same kind of design criteria or performance standards to construction or storage units being constructed in other locations such as commercial zones. But that isn't part of this right now. We actually have applied similar standards to these in some storage units that have been built under development agreements in commercial zones. But that's not what we're dealing with right now. This is just some clarifications of the existing standards as they relate to the RP and the BN zones.
Madam Mayor, I'm known as the impatient guy up here. Council, have we not read through all these? If there's any questions or there was something controversial by the committee, I mean, I think the dog issue was one. I think the parking was one. I think there was
those
one.
are the only 2 that the commission.
I don't see the sense of going through all of these at this point in time.
I might call out the one that you have, the one staff report, or the one letter on from David Bills. This was a series of, I think it would fall under the amendment number 14. That may be one you may want to have a little discussion on.
Okay. Why don't you go through, Norm, I'm sorry, Mayor, if you wouldn't mind.
Okay.
That would be fine. And then number 18 is another one that P and Z
Right,
brought out.
right.
So we've covered the first 2. We still have one more. So
Yeah.
that's fine as long as if council feels comfortable that you've read and you know what you
I
need.
can only speak for myself, but I know these folks here and they're so thorough, and I believe, yeah.
So let's start with amendment number 14 then.
We'll do that. I appreciate that. I'm all for speeding this up
Yeah.
as well as too, so, but we want you to not overlook anything either, so. Anyway, Amendment 14 was an effort to react to the need for infill housing with an eye towards allowing smaller lot sizes in appropriate locations. This does not preempt the construction of single-family homes of size and design commensurate with what is being built in standard subdivisions now. It creates a set of infill enhancement allowances in the subdivision ordinance, and they're being proposed to be placed in coordination with what we're calling the new RS4 zone, which is a 4,000 square foot lot zone, and introducing that as a part of this. So that is basically what those amendments are about in Amendment 14, 10.8.6 of the ordinance. Let's see.
And I would assume, David, you're planning on speaking during the public hearing time? so you can go ahead and personally state your concerns, okay?
I think there's one other amendment that deals with some of this too that maybe I'm overlooking at this point. Actually, it's Amendment 29. If you want to jump forward to that one. This amendment revises our current infill density bonuses outside of planned unit developments. And that amendment is intended to help meet a market demand for small lots that can house homes and help provide more housing opportunities for our local market and add a requirement to such subdivisions to provide open space. And that relates also to the RS4 amendment previously. And that Amendment 29, I think, speaks specifically to David Bill's, some of his comments that he has raised that you have before you, suggesting a couple of changes to that amendment. And I'm going to open that up on the, that's, again, that's the same, Amendment 29 is also the Section 29 in the zoning ordinance amendments that you have in detail before you too. So what,
So, Madam Mayor, I just had a question. I think, the Mayor also, so on Amendment 18 regarding the dogs again, and then
Yes.
potbelly pigs.
that would require no change to
Okay.
be made to that one. That's right.
Okay.
If you left it as is.
So we would, if we decided to allow 3 rather than 2 dogs, but still there would only be, only 2 potbelly pigs would be allowed? Is that what I'm reading on that? I just want clarification, I guess is what I'm asking for.
Yes, it would be a total of 3, no matter how you counted them.
So, okay, so
2
they're
dogs,
either
1
a
pig,
combination of 2
pigs.
pigs, 1 dog, or vice versa, or, okay. Are there any other animals we should be including in this?
Not to my knowledge,
Okay.
wish.
All right, thank you.
There's no limit on cats?
Cats are not regulated
Okay, all right. I tried.
for obvious reasons.
Sorry to the cat lovers, sorry.
And I actually lost my place, and I had a question. There was a section where it was talking about some of the historic district and some changes in language, and I lost it.
It was 15, maybe?
It was a different one, though, and I mean, it's about that, but I lost the language. So are you familiar with what I'm talking about? And, man, I can't find it now. I just wanted a better understanding of the, yeah.
Let's see. I'm not sure, Mayor, where that would be.
Okay, if I find it, I'll come back later on it. If it doesn't get resolved.
The 15, as Darrell mentioned, Councilman Bruner mentioned, is the amendment that recognizes and reacts to the change in the location of definitions from Chapter 15 to Chapter 1. So it puts some of those definitions for the historic district also into Chapter 1 to get them in 2 places. So if they're looking for them in one place, they'll find them, and they'll find them in the other place too.
I don't have any other questions. Does council have any other questions for Norm? Okay, seeing none. Do you have anything else you'd like to share?
Unless you wanted to review, give David Bills an opportunity and we could discuss
Yeah,
what he's.
Well, as part of the public hearing, he'll come forward. So, and we'll have you come back if we have any questions. And so at this time, I'd like to open the public hearing because this is a public hearing and provide opportunity. And we didn't have anyone signed up. Well, that's 6, excuse me. Let's go to 6-1. David is signed up on 6-1. I was on the wrong sheet. So David, let's talk to you, or you talk to us.
Thank you, Mayor. David Bills, 3400 South Montego Way, Nampa, Idaho, and before you regarding some of these amendments, and appreciate the time. Furthermore, appreciate the fact that staff last fall heard the comments and your concurrence to comments before you last September about going with some smaller infill subdivisions to help in some of those areas, and so staff came forward with wording on that. What I've asked is of staff to provide before you then is a slight revision and encouragement to incorporate that change into what's before you this evening. And what it has to do with is not the infill RS4 part of the ordinance that would be on property that necessarily isn't enclaved within the city, but more somebody wants to do an RS4, a PUD in ground that is possibly just on the outskirts of town or right on the adjacent being annexed in. What I'm trying to refer to is the properties that are inside the city limits, that basically they're enclaved. They, the folks who own these type of properties, they're currently in the county, yet they have basically access to city services. You wouldn't know the difference if they're living in the county or living in the city if you just drive by, unless you kind of really knew the zoning map. And so there's numerous of those properties that are being looked at right now and are being contemplated. And so I've got personal experience with it, having worked on some of that in the last 6 weeks. And what I'm finding is that there's a need for the incentive, and the reason for the change is to clarify that open space requirement on those type of properties. Very difficult on some of those properties. They're odd shaped. Sometimes it's topography. On one property that we're looking at right now, cannot be serviced by sewer without a sewer lift station. And so is it smart to leave that property 9 acres in the county forever? Or is it smart to give some density enhancements and allow that property to be developed and bring forward? And so that's what I'm encouraging the council to adopt, that little bit of change that allows that change on the down to 5% on open space. When you're talking 2 or 3 acres and how many lots, and then all of a sudden you take 15%, you can lose 3 or 4 lots real quick just in that item alone. Then if you have the exceptions, which we've proposed, there's various reasons. You have drains that go through the properties. You have other elements there that we've listed. And so trying to encourage to understand that it's to the benefit of the city to allow these enhancements. Finally, let me share with you. If you took a 25 lot subdivision that was put in on 4.5, 5 acres, with enhanced density, that property is going to bring in $250,000 to the city in impact fees. It's going to bring in $400,000 in hookup fees. Furthermore, that 25 lots is going to bring in $325,000 a year in property taxes. Now you heard you heard Mr. Barnes bring up $300,000 savings in a department. This is 25 home sites inside your city limits now, not used because it's being guarded against. It's not market friendly to develop. Here you're providing incentives. Now think about that the property next to the one that's being developed, the neighbor says, oh, you're able to develop? Well, gosh, I think we'd like to sell our ground too and be done with this. Well, now you have 50. Now think about the numbers again. Now you have 250,000 impact fees. The 400,000, I was off on, I read the wrong line, but property taxes now are 675,000 per year. Just because you've given incentive to developing some of that ground that's sitting right now in your area. It's smart business. But if you continue to disincentivize and continue to discourage, then you sit with county properties sitting there. Again, these are properties that police and fire drive by every day. Your utilities are already in the main street. There's no additional time or no additional cost to the city, only encouragement. So that's why I want to encourage you to make that change. I'd like to encourage you to pass this ordinance. And finally, on a separate subject, I know I'm over time. On the dogs, potbelly pig issues, I'd encourage you to add the wording into that part of the ordinance that says it's the ordinance unless otherwise specified in CC&Rs. Too many times homeowners say, well, the city says it's okay. but the CCNRs don't say it's okay. And it's the more restrictive. It would be nice if the city would say, you can have this, but if the CCNRs say different, go with the CCNRs.
Thank you.
Any questions?
No, Mayor Kling, I would just concur. I was thinking the same thing when we were talking about parking in public ways and you know, these vehicles get in the way of emergency vehicles being able to get in and out. But I know the CCNRs are probably more restrictive than maybe our code is. So thanks for bringing that out.
So I just have a question, because unless otherwise stated, it would be important that they realize that they cannot increase the number, correct? And so that would be my concern, that it is no more than 2 unless the CCNRs are more restrictive. Because could a CCNR say, no, we're going to allow you to have 3 dogs, even though by...
They could. Our typical CCNRs are restricted to 2 dogs per household. And we have a paragraph that deals with animals of all sorts. It deals with the chickens, the potbelly pigs, et cetera. And there's a reason for it because of trying to find harmony within the community. The difficulty I've run into is when somebody is being asked to eliminate a dog and they go, I called down to the city and they say, I can have 2 dogs in my house and I can have 2 dogs in my yard. And obviously the property manager or subdivision manager has to respond, well, you'll read in your CCNRs. Well, I don't care. The city tells me this is what I can do. So if your ordinance changes, P&Z is saying leave it alone, but if you would insert the words, we support whatever is recorded CCNRs.
Okay.
I'm just trying to find harmony between city code where there are no CCNRs and city code where you have a multitude of subdivisions with CCNRs.
So Mayor, your question, no, I'm still not, Dave, I'm still not, don't have clarification from what the mayor asked. So are you saying then the CCR would trump the city and possibly could allow more animals than what the city is allowing?
The typical, and you can ask your council is the typical wording is whichever is the most restrictive is what shall govern. And so typically CCNRs will be more restrictive.
In most cases, yeah.
Correct.
Okay.
And Norm?
If it went to 3, yeah, and they said 2, they would be more restrictive, yes.
Okay.
Mayor?
Yes.
I understand what Mr. Bills is bringing out, but I appreciated how Councilman Bruner worded that. And when I'm looking at that, to me, it looks like the CCNRs and development is trumping what the city says. And I have a difficult time with that.
So we would need to have legal weigh in on the language so that it is very clear that the CCNR, if it is more restrictive than our code, that it would stand, that they have the opportunity as a CCNR to impose more restrictive guidelines within that CCNR. They just cannot go above what we have done as a city. Is that correct? I mean, legal, you could craft that language?
We can, yeah, thank you, Mayor. And this is an issue that does come up, and Norm can attest to that, and in building department as well. There are numerous situations where CCNRs will overlap with city regulations, and it's not just animals, but it happens with fences and parking and sometimes setbacks and paint colors and all kinds of stuff. They are separate regulations, both of which would apply. And in that context, then, it is true that the more restrictive provision would prevail, because both of those sets of regulations or laws are applicable to the homeowner. One is a matter of contract, that's the CCNRs, and they become essentially party to that contract by virtue of owning property in the subdivision. And then, of course, the city ordinances apply based on the city's legislative authority to enact an ordinance. Here's my thought as it comes up. I don't think it's a bad idea, but I'm wondering whether we don't generalize it and look at a provision that talks about CCNRs and their relation to the city code in general. Because the other thing that I get is I will get calls from people who want me to enforce, want the city to enforce their CCNRs. And it is confusing, and I think for people that aren't familiar with real estate laws and regulations, I can get why that's potentially a problem, but the city does not enforce CCNRs. They're separate in contract. This came up a little bit in our Greenbrier stuff, but I think, Dave, is that still going to kind of, what I wouldn't want to do is get into a situation where, well, yeah, the city said something specific regarding CCNRs with respect to dogs and pigs, but the city didn't say that its rules don't apply regarding parking.
Yeah, I would concur, Mr. Hilty, that a general statement added in at some point into the city code would just simply see that the city code acknowledges CCNRs and acknowledges state code that the more restrictive governs. And then it's simpler for code enforcement or other personnel at the city when they get the phone call to be able to respond appropriately to the homeowner who wants to go above and beyond because city code allows certain issues. And for instance, another item with us is fencing, that vision triangle. Our CCNRs require fence to be set back from the sidewalk and to make sure that you don't have somebody backing out of a driveway and can't see that a child's coming up. Code would allow you to set the fence against the sidewalk. We require it to be set back. So it's those type of issues. And so I appreciate the general part would be really great.
What I'd recommend then just is let my office work with Norm, and we'll come up with something that's general, something that addresses these issues, find a good place for it in code, probably bring it back as a separate amendment.
Thank you.
Thank you for the extra time this evening.
Thank you. So this is a public hearing, and we only had one person signed up to testify. Is there someone here that had intended to testify this evening? Hello. Mr. Hubert? Hubert, I don't remember your address, so you're going to have to state it.
Not everybody remembers my name either. It's Hubert Osborne, 4199 East Switzer Way here in Nampa. I don't know how the council feels on some of these things, so I did read the amendments, and I'd like to comment. I would like to see the code remaining at 2 dogs. We have new neighbors. The first thing they did was put in a fence to keep me off their lawn. They have 2 dogs and a third one that visits on a regular basis. I would like, they've been fine, no problem so far. On the RV, I think 72 hours is more fair if you have out-of-town visitors, and not everybody has a circle driveway to park the RV in. I don't think it's reasonable that they should have to move that every 24 hours. And we have a community activist in our neighborhood that will cite you on the 25th hour, so I think 72 hours is reasonable. Mr. Bills brought up some things that a different way than I have tried to address it, but I think infill development should be encouraged, and he has one way to do that. I've made some suggestions here and there. It's kind of like throwing mud against a wall. You hope it sticks, but his ideas are sound, and I would hope you would listen to what he had to say. Thank you.
Are there any questions? Thank you. Is there anyone else that had intended to testify this evening that did not get signed up? Okay, seeing none. I do have a question. Norm, if I could ask you this question. In relationship to the discussion we had around amendment, I think it's 14 and 29 that David was talking about. I just want to make sure that it's important that if we reduce the percentage, and I understand that we have walking paths. I think the key to making a subdivision, even a small, with our smaller lots, is that there are good walking paths and connectivity to surrounding neighborhoods through those walking paths. Do we have that stated elsewhere just to ensure that that's an outcome that we actually achieve, that there are walking paths?
That is stated in the amendments as well, the need for the pathways to interconnect between subdivisions, et cetera, yes.
Yeah, and I see it's bounded by a public walkway, whatever. I just was thinking about the language and making sure it's clear enough, because one of the things that make a subdivision of this nature appealing is that it has walking paths throughout, not just a sidewalk on the outside, right? If so, and that's where that open space can be nothing more than a nice walking path. And we have subdivisions right now that have a nice walking path internally within that subdivision. And so I do see that it's bounded by that. I just don't see it within.
Say the RS4, say you had a RS4 zone, that would apply to areas other than infill locations, or it could potentially.
That's my second question of concern.
Yes.
I fully support infill, and I think that we need to be encouraging and incentivizing infill. So I fully support that. The concern I have is through this change, we don't necessarily want to encourage moving outside, right? That we're growing with very small lot sizes. This really is to help incentivize internal growth and using that what ground is currently county that has not been annexed, our enclave properties.
Right, and some of those are larger than an acre or 2 or 5 acres.
Right.
Yeah.
But it isn't necessarily something that we're trying to incentivize growing out.
That's good.
So, but.
There's 2 sections of that code.
Would you like, go ahead and come up so that you're, and it's, since we're still in public hearing, I think we can have you come back and answer that question. And thank you.
I think it's important for you to distinguish in terms of what's before you. It has 2 types of RS4. There's an RS4 that if somebody was out on Cherry Lane and there was 20 acres there and they wanted to develop small lots with a great deal of open space, which is similar to what I spoke about back in September, that part of the subdivision ordinance is being modified to allow that type of plat to come forward. That type of language that's in there requires the percentage of open space, the larger percentage of open space. It requires the walking paths within the community, and it's flavoring a different type of housing. And so whether that is like any other subdivision being developed, it just is allowed to be developed under a different set of criteria. That type of subdivision, you want to leave the open space requirements as written. You want to leave the walking paths as written. But that same language transferred with the infill. And so it's under the infill type properties that I'm encouraging you to allow that open space to decrease and or be exempted, because under infill situations, now we're talking property that's off of Lone Star and Midland. You don't really notice the property unless you look for it, because you have to drive back behind somebody, and then you have this 9 acres sitting there that's being farmed, or this 4-acre pasture that the person's 77 and says, I want to get rid of my horses and I don't want the pasture anymore. It's the property that has dead-end roadways that were put in 20 years ago, and the pavement stops at the pasture. And across the pasture is another dead-end road, and if we develop in between there, we connect the 2 roads. And now the police has connectivity. And you have regular sidewalks per the sidewalk improvements, but you're not trying to build pathways, and there's not room to do that. So that's the distinction, if that helps.
That does help, and I appreciate that, because I think that exactly as you stated, I agree. So, thank you. Are there any other questions from council? And thank you for listening through mine. Other questions? Okay, so this is a public hearing. If we have no other questions or comments, I would stand for a motion to close public hearing.
So moved. I'll second that.
All in favor?
Aye.
Council discussion?
Madam Mayor, fellow council members, I will make the motion that we pass what has been presented to us and keep the dogs at 2 as recommended by P&Z, and that we follow P&Z's direction and go to 72 hours on the camping issue. And also that we adopt what I have on a yellow piece of paper from David Bills. I think that's very well thought out and been very well explained, and I appreciate that, Mr. Bills, that you brought that to us. I think that's a good incentive to get some of that infill taken care of. So that is my motion.
I'll second that.
Okay, discussion, and I have a question. I'm sorry.
I'm sorry. Madam Mayor, are we accepting in all the other amendments as stated? Okay. That's my second wanted to include that, so, okay.
Okay.
Thanks.
I have one question, and again, I lost my place on here, but there's one of these amendments that talks about 2 dogs plus a pig that you could go up to, or the aggregate of whichever up to 3. That's gone with this? I just wanted to make sure we're limiting it to 2. Okay, perfect. Thank you. That's what I needed to clarify, that it covered that.
Mayor?
Yes?
And so, and I'm trying to find it on my notes too because I just lost it. The area that we were going to have legal clarify the wording has been taken care of?
That will come forth in a separate code amendment that legal counsel will put together, and that'll come back at a second time. And he'll do it right away.
If we're approving it tonight, though, that's included in here. The amendments, it wasn't made as an exception, right?
It is not in the current motion, but this is, the language that our legal counsel is going to work on is actually an overarching language that is going to come back and be applied to, really to our code and our ordinance as a whole. Am I correct in stating that? So it is not included in this because we're just approving what's before us today. He's going to come back with a separate amendment, an ordinance, yeah, that will be an overarching ordinance. Thank you.
Excuse me, Mayor. Councilman Levi, you're talking about the HOA having the priority in handling those situations?
Correct.
Okay, and I agree with Councilman Levi. I don't want to pass that. I want to see what you can come up with.
Just to clarify for council, it was a suggestion to add that tonight. And instead of doing that, it's not in anything that you're being asked to pass
good.
tonight. It would come back as a separate ordinance. You'd have a chance to read it, ask questions, and so forth.
Okay, good. I just want to clarify.
Thank you. Thank you.
Just for clarity's sake, we're not creating anything new. We're simply providing a sort of a clear definition for the sake of HOA owners. I had this discussion with my wife this past week. She's now the treasurer at our HOA, and so we don't allow. I know she doesn't know what she's in for, but we don't allow chickens. And someone says the city says I can keep my chickens, and so we've already kind of crossed that bridge. And I told her no, the more restrictive the HOA stands, but you can't expect Chief Huff to enforce that. We have to enforce that within our HOA. Anyhow, but from my understanding, that discussion is simply just to provide great clarification, right? Nothing, we're not creating anything new. We're just, okay. Yeah.
Correct.
Mayor, also, I'm concerned with 29 lot size. I don't know what the effects will be. I'm not sure how that's going to affect the city or taxes or anything else. I'd like a little more, I guess, be educated a little bit more on that issue. And on number 2, I don't agree. I'd like to have 48 hours instead of 72. So with that in mind, I would be more than happy to pass them if I understood them better. So what do you think?
Well, we have a motion on the table and a second. So we would have to either amend the motion or vote where it is, and you would have that opportunity. During this discussion time, though, we can discuss, because 29, the 4,000 feet, you had a question about that. Our public hearing's closed, but I think we could possibly answer your question. Am I correct during this discussion time, if you'd like to ask Norm a question about that?
So we reduce the lot sizes in these areas. I'm kind of considering, what would be the effects that we have as considering like 8,000 square foot lots compared to one of these? Or are we downsizing to make good ideas for homes? Or are we going to be a bunch of houses in a small area, which would increase population that way?
Well, first of all, we're not eliminating any of the RS 6, 7, 8, 10, 12, 18 zones. Okay, those are still in place.
Okay.
The RS4 zone is a new zone that would be applied to a specified subdivision in an area. I'm trying to figure out, maybe David could help me explain this actually. You have an RS4 zoned subdivision would only be allowed with the conditional requirements that are listed in this code.
I see.
It doesn't create an option for a blanket RS4 anywhere in town. It's just subdivisions that could be zoned RS4 in these locations that would meet the open space requirements, all of the code restrictions that are applied as a part of allowing that smaller lot subdivision would create open space, functional open space, you know. all the things.
So would that allow apartment complexes in there?
No.
It's nothing to do with it, right? Okay, okay.
This,
All right.
if I could share, so a concept that might be a good example is Tuscany.
Mhm.
Tuscany has some very small lot lines, but they have a lot of walking paths, big green open space playgrounds. And so it's the style of living that actually, for those that don't want a big yard, they want a really almost a zero lot line. They want nice amenities, but they want open green space and
Right,
walking
okay.
paths. What I was
Yeah.
clarifying was the infill, where we have something small, that's going to be a little different, because you don't want the infill intent outlying.
That's, okay, good.
And that was the clarity.
Yes, okay,
Right.
good.
And Madam Mayor, I think Mr. Bills, in a previous discussion also, I thought was very, very well presented, was it's just not our age, it's younger people that want to travel and do so many
Right.
things. They don't want to be
Right.
taking care of their yards all the time.
Right.
They want that small and HOAs and so on. So I'm totally in favor of this infill. I'm totally in favor of getting enclave areas into city limits. So I've stated that many times. So even though I make a few not happy with that statement.
Yeah, in many ways, these type of subdivisions we're talking about would look like the other kind, except the space would be open space, not on the lot
Yeah.
itself.
Okay,
Smaller lot, larger open space.
Thank you.
Mayor and council, it's also my understanding that if the 15 goes to 5, which is part of the motion, and I think it's good that there are times something comes before us and we're conflicted based on public testimony, and I know Councilman Bruner likes tot lots, right? That last subdivision. So, I mean, sometimes, so we've attached as a condition of approval, something that, you know, is passable and acceptable within as a deliberative body, but having 15 and then asking for the exception as opposed to going to 5 and then us deliberating as a body, I think is a fair, wise next step. So I support the motion.
Mayor, I just have to make sure I understand this, and I'm sorry if I'm beating a dead horse, but, so if we were to approve that with the amendment 29, as Mr. Bills had laid out for us, and I agree, I support infill, but does this automatically allow the smaller lot size of infill to be put next to surrounding subdivisions that have larger lot sizes?
It's a good question. Norm, would you like to answer that?
I'm not sure I know exactly the answer to that, but I believe they still have to meet. I don't believe that that can happen, actually, where you have one of these infills next. Am I wrong on that?
Did we close public testimony?
Since we've closed public testimony, that's a difficult one. So would you guys,
I can talk to that one.
thank you.
So, Mayor, Councilman Levi, ultimately, the zoning, this RS4 zoning, we do not have any of that within the city now until you guys create that opportunity. Any annexation or rezone that would have to come before the Planning and Zoning Commission and this body to be assigned this zoning. So it does not automatically entitle a property to have this zoning. It's still the will of the Planning and Zoning Commission and City Council ultimately to assign this zone to any given property.
Exactly what I was looking for, thank you.
Thank you. Okay, is there any further discussion? So we have a motion and a second on the table, and if there's no further discussion, this would be roll call, and do you all remember the motion? Okay, roll call.
Rodriguez?
Yes.
Vogelboom?
Yes.
Levi?
Yes.
Haverfield?
Yes.
Bruner?
Yes.
Skog?
Yes.
Thank you. So moving on to 6.2 in our public hearings. This is the vacation of, and we've got an A and B here, and Rodney will be speaking to this, but A is the reserved utility easements in the previously vacated 80 feet by 340-foot section of right-of-way of Locust Street located on the east side of lots 7 through 12, Block 180, west of Block 179, and south of the center line of the vacated right-of-way of East Georgia Avenue, all in the Kurtz Addition subdivision. And this is the reserved utility easements in the 40-foot by 340-foot section of right-of-way at Juniper Street, located west of the vacated East 40 right-of-way of Juniper Street and south of the center line of the vacated right-of-way of East Georgia Avenue on the east side of Block 179 of Kurtz Addition subdivision in Nampa. All in Kurtz Addition, located in Book 2, page 37 of Canyon County Plats, Canyon County, for Douglas E. Peterson, representing Sky Ridge Limited Partnership.
It's a mouthful.
It is.
Rodney Ashby, Planning and Zoning Principal Planner, Mayor and Council. Good to be here today. This is an example of something you've just been talking about in infill development and a potential of incentivizing that to be developed. The applicant requested this easement on a previously vacated right-of-way between Georgia, or what would be Georgia Avenue, as well as Hawaii Avenue, as you can see on the screen. Here's where Georgia would be if it were to continue through, and then here's Hawaii. And the two properties are on either end of this square here. And their proposal is to, in order to construct 2 single-story senior living buildings. The applicant recently applied for a development agreement modification to construct these single-story senior living apartments on the subject property, and we anticipate that coming before the City Council on May 6th. The easements were previously presumed to be vacated at the time of the right-of-way vacations of those sections of roadway that I just pointed out. And that was back in September 6, 2005, ordinance number 3483, which is in your packet. The city engineer has indicated that there are no utility services existing or planned within the proposed areas for vacation, and though the 1968 ordinance appeared to show the vacation of the alley of Block 179 on the exhibit, the ordinance excluded Block 179 from the narrative. This may have been because of the sewer line and sewer easement running through the length of the alley. So I'll point that out just so it's clear where that alley is and where there is existing right-of-way that doesn't show up on our map. So we anticipate the applicant coming back to City Council for vacation of that right-of-way, but keeping the sewer easement through the alley. And that we anticipate to be on May 6th as well. State law indicates that the easement shall be vacated in the same manner as streets, and basically it comes down to we notify the neighbors, we hold a public hearing, and that qualifies for the vacation requirements. We have had no city department or partnering agency or even citizen opposition to this application. Just a note on infill development, I highlighted this in our staff report. The area is already largely developed out and is serviced by utilities, public safety, parks, and other city services. This The city services are really close by, as indicated in the staff report. The city's comprehensive plan outlines multiple benefits of infill development, as has been discussed already. The plan calls for placing a high priority on infill development, and the city council may find that the approval of the vacation would help facilitate achieving the objectives and strategies related to infill development in the comprehensive plan. In the staff report are conditions that we would recommend for approval. And I stand for questions.
And Rodney, thank you. We may have you come back if there are questions. I normally take the applicant first, and I goofed and I called you up. So so we'll go back to the applicant. Is the applicant here this evening? I didn't see them. Okay, so that's why you're up first. All right. So this is a public hearing, and I do not have anyone signed up to testify in favor of or against this particular vacation request. Is there anyone here that had intended to testify and did not get signed up? Okay, seeing none, then are there any questions for Rodney on this particular issue? And if not, I would stand for a motion to close public hearing.
So moved.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Okay, discussion and further questions.
Madam Mayor, I'll make the motion that we go ahead and approve the easement vacation that has been requested and construction of 2 single-story senior living buildings.
I'll think of that.
It's been moved and seconded. Is there any further discussion? Hearing none, roll call.
Hogaboom?
Yes.
Levi?
Yes.
Haverfield?
Yes.
Skog?
Yes.
Rodriguez?
Yes.
Brunner?
Yes.
Our last public hearing this evening is item 6.3 on the agenda, and this is the intention to create a utility LID 163. And I would assume that we are our applicant, and Daniel Badger, I've got you down as the person speaking on this.
Mayor, Council, the local improvement district we are requesting to be created tonight, or holding the public hearing for creation tonight, is for the use for connection fees for city utilities. We've had 12 people over the last year and a half who have requested to connect to city utilities and finance those connections through this local improvement district. We've compiled all those. The property owners total or the dollar value of the total connection fees for those 12 properties sits just under $40,000, $38,995.67. And so we would just request that you authorize the creation of the sidewalk, or not the sidewalk, the utility connection LID 136, and we would, if approved tonight, we'll bring back the ordinance next council meeting for that actual creation.
So I have a question for you. How do you advertise this?
So we do not necessarily advertise it, but when property owners come in, existing property owners, existing homeowners that are have failed wells, failed septic, or they're wanting to connect to irrigation, as we talk to them and give them their fee estimates, we let them know that this is an option for paying those connection fees through the local improvement district. So it's not something that we advertise out to the general public, but when we do receive questions, it is part of our process to let them know that there is this option to finance their fees this way.
And if someone is not currently in the LID, but I just learned of some people that were having some problems with the sewer in Nampa, the costs that they heard were really expensive costs. I'd like to be able to go back to them and say that we do have an opportunity for funding if they'd like to come in, but if they've missed this, when is the next opportunity that they could participate?
The way that we have done, we used to create the LIDs first, and then people came in, and annually we would create a new one. With the changes in the LIDs and recommendation from the bond council on how we process these, we collect those people in, and then we create the LID once we've collected, you know, a year's worth or a year and a half, depending on how many people have come in. This is strictly for the city utility connection fees. This does not finance any construction for their property, whether that's extension of main lines or connection of a sewer main or anything out to the roadway. This is strictly for the connection fees due to the city.
Okay, thank you. But then in answer to the question, if someone is not part of this one, it would be possibly another year to year and a half.
So-
They could not get into this one if they chose to.
No, they
Okay.
would not be able to get into this one. What we have done is we've allowed those connections to take place. We collect those and then come and create the LID after the fact.
Okay,
So they could still come in, request connection through the LID, fill out all the paperwork necessary, make their physical connection, and then we would not be creating the LID for another year or so.
thank you. Councilwoman Levi?
My apologies for interrupting you, Mayor. Daniel, so unlike the sidewalk LIDs, this is not zone-specific?
No, this is not zone specific. Any property within the city, we tend to only use it for existing homes or properties that were on a well or a septic or not on city pressurized irrigation for financing those connections. But any property that's within the city limits would be eligible.
And follow up, please. Thank you. Kind of in line with what the mayor was asking, that someone's come in after the fact and they're wanting to do something with their sewers, et cetera. My question would be then, if somebody comes in and identifies their problem, they're waiting for a year?
No,
How does that work?
Mayor, Councilman Levi, we have allowed the physical connections to happen ahead of the creation of the LID.
So then, when does the payment happen?
So the payment would start after the LID creation. So these 12 properties over the last year and a half have applied for connection, made their physical connections, are receiving utility bills, and they would then be, once we create the LID, hold the final assessment roll, public hearing, and confirm that, then they would start receiving a bill for the connection fee portion of their.
And there's no penalties or interest to them for having to wait?
No, Mayor and Councilman Levi, there are no penalties. There is interest involved in the LID, but that would not start accruing until the creation of the LID and the final assessment roll.
Thank you, sir.
Are there any further questions? Okay, I'm sorry I had to ask the question. Did we open public hearing? I'm losing track of it right now. So this was the staff report. I don't think this is a public hearing, and we have not opened the public hearing yet. Thank you. So I'd like to open the public hearing. We do not have anyone signed up to testify in support of or against this. Is there anyone here that had intended to speak on behalf of this issue? Okay, seeing none, I would stand for a motion to close public hearing.
So moved.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
And council discussion.
Mayor Kling, I'll go ahead and make the motion to authorize the creation of LID 163 for utility connection fees.
Second.
It's been moved and seconded. Is there any further discussion?
Mayor, just for clarification, for the record, because of the way the public knows that I have felt about LIDs in the past, I just want to point out that according to the wording here, it says all 12 properties voluntarily requested to be included in this LID, so therefore I would be supporting this motion.
Thank you. Any further discussion? Seeing none, roll call.
Rodriguez?
Yes.
Brunner?
Yes.
Levi?
Yes.
Skog?
Yes.
Hogaboom?
Yes.
Haverfield?
Yes.
This concludes our public hearings, and we only have a few new business and unfinished business items, so I'd like to go ahead and push through those, and then we'll adjourn into executive session. So the first, we'll pause, unless council needs a break. Does anyone need a break?
Yeah.
It sounds like it's
Yeah.
going to be quick, but I don't think it's going to be quick. So if we can take 3 to
Break.
5 minutes, I'd
Okay,
appreciate
5-minute
it, Mayor.
break.
Thank you.
Thank you.
All right.
You're killing it.
I'm trying to look down to see where you were, I'm sorry. Yeah. I need it, yeah.
Oh, I don't know what they're waiting for. They're waiting on the sign.
The sign, or the pin. Where's Amanda?
She's in the gray by Nate Roscoe back.
Oh, she is, I haven't seen her.
Amanda Mark.
Yeah. And Honey Goodwin is here too. Okay, are we ready? Okay, so we're going to move. This is to new business right now. This is action item 5.1 on the agenda. And this is actually for council. This was a staff report from finance that we've just moved into an action item to discuss budget. And we're missing Bruce. Where are you, Bruce?
I think he's.
And we're missing the finance director.
No, finance director's
Oh,
right
there he
there,
is.
ready to go. I'd like us all to get to hear it, so.
I concur. We should turn the lights off and leave. That'd be a funny April Fool's joke.
You know, that would be awesome.
He would appreciate that.
I think he's outside talking on the phone.
Tell him we already approved the budget when he comes in. How about that?
It's already his bedtime.
But tell him that we just appointed him to another committee.
I tell you what, let's move on real quickly to action item number 5.3, and we're going to come back, so just stay right there. So action item number 5.3 is to authorize the mayor and public works director to sign the task order for professional services between the city of Nampa and Paragon Consulting for the Greenhurst Road at Sunnybrook Drive and Canyon Street project, key number 21999.
So moved.
Second.
Any discussion? Roll call.
Rodriguez?
Yes.
Vogelboom?
Yes.
Levi?
Yes.
Brunner?
Yes.
Haverfield?
Yes.
Okay, so the next item, I guess we can begin the discussion around it. We'll go to 5.4, and this is to authorize the mayor to sign the letter to the city of Star concerning the expansion of their impact area.
So move.
Second.
Okay, and so it's been moved and seconded in discussion. Just real quickly, as I visited with Caldwell today, Mayor Nancolis, and they've also already sent a letter and had their communication because it's expanding into several. And who was our second?
I think Randy beat him, but you guys can arm wrestle it.
Randy?
I'll take it.
Okay. And we're voting on action item number 5.4, which is the letter to the city of Star. And so roll call.
Rodriguez?
Yes.
Vogelboom,
Yes.
Levi,
Yes.
Skog,
Yes.
Haverfield,
Yes.
Brunner.
Yes.
And Bruce, we just decided to fly by 5-1, and we just approved it and listened to the staff report, and away we went. If it weren't April 1st, I would not have done that. I just decided, yeah, April Fools, no, we did not, and we waited for you, so. So 5.2 has been removed from the agenda, and we will go back to action item 5.1. And as I mentioned, this is actually a staff report that we're moving into a discussion. So our new finance director, Doug, I've said your name wrong. It's Racine.
Racine, yeah.
Racine, okay,
Right.
thank you.
It's easy to say Racine, but it's Racine.
Racine.
Mayor, City Councilors, thank you very much for allowing me to come and spend a few moments of your time. As of last Friday, we completed the city's annual financial audit, and that was a great opportunity for us to take a breather. The verbiage of the audit is something I've long been familiar with, and when you read the audit report, you look at the opinion section. It's one little tiny paragraph out of this 160-page report that gives the auditor's assertion, and we received a clean opinion. So the clean opinion, for those, it states that our financial statement in all material respects is fairly presented. And those are kind of magical, wonderful words for an auditor or an accountant to hear. That just means that we have presented everything in our financial statements is accurate and fair as presented. My question for the council is, would they like to have the auditors come at some future time, perhaps the next council meeting, and present their audit findings to the council?
Yes.
Okay.
Yeah.
All right.
Yes.
I should mention in the audit, while we did get a clean opinion, there were two findings as they went through. One was related to the timing of our bank reconciliations. They were delayed in significant part because of the rollout of the Tyler accounting software. And it took a while to reconcile and identify some of the software glitches that were maybe placing numbers in hard-to-find locations. And that means we have a little bit of work to do, but it doesn't affect our clean finding. And we also had one other finding related to the valuation of certain assets that was corrected during the audit process. But other than that, it was a very good audit, and we're glad to have it done. Moving on to the budget. In my preparation, I wanted to share very, very briefly that the budgets I've been doing for about 20, 25 years. A budget is a financial tool designed to achieve a specific outcome. The better the budget, the better the outcome. But designing a good budget process takes a little bit of time. I've heard mention here tonight from I think Tom Point's group about the number of months they put in to find those $300,000 of savings was a significant number of months. So it's something we have to start now in order to get something moving. My approach for the budget process is to focus on finding savings. Some of these savings will take longer than the budget process itself can encompass, so we have to keep working, even though we finished the budget, to look for savings. But also to prioritize the review of any spending increases that come out of the budget. So if a budget, I've told the directors today that if whatever line items go up, we'll review them and see is it rational, do they need to go up? And my expectation is that I share with the directors and the city council and the mayor clear expectations and clear communications of what's going on during the budget process to help prevent any miscommunications. A budget can be a very challenging process. And finally, I have seen very effective budgets help organizations grow, and I've seen very bad budgets really tear organizations apart. The quality of budget makes a huge difference in how it is executed and how it is analyzed during the course of the year. So my goal is to create a budget that has the best financial information we can get so that we can analyze it more effectively during the course of the year and then make course corrections during the year as needed. Now, the first step of this is creating a budget calendar, which is the document you have before you. I have two potential calendars. One is an early adoption, a little more aggressive out in front, but you'll notice that in each case, the starting point and the ending point of both scenarios start essentially today and end on August 19th at the public hearing. So what's happening between those two guardrails is one is trying to achieve the budget done a little faster, and the other gives us a little more time to work more accurately on it.
That said, so we're trying to respect the time of the council and vacations. And as much as it would be nice to be done in June, there's a lot of work to be done. And if we can push into later in July, that would be ideal. However, it depends on schedules because we had committed to do it in June, and so we really respect the council's time and wanted to put it before the council to look at the timeline. Because ultimately, I mean, we will work with the timeline all in the middle. It really gets down to, do we want to have our workshops, we could do them the week of July 9th and 10th on a Tuesday, Wednesday, or we could do them on a June 26th and 27th, which is a Wednesday, Thursday. So one is before 4th of July break, the other is following it. And then, of course, the next week is Snake River Stampede Rodeo. So the other thing that we were looking at, just so that, is to get the budget delivered to the council a minimum of 2 weeks prior to the actual council workshop, so that the council had it for 2 weeks to review. Is that sufficient? Does that work? And you can always ask questions and have meetings and discussions prior to that time. That doesn't limit that at all, but the actual budget in your hands, and we can give you pieces and parts of whatever, but.
Correct.
So what is vacation schedule? Bruce, do you have,
Madam
Councilman
Mayor,
Skog, I should say.
Fellow council members, I really appreciate the effort to get that report to us 2 weeks ahead of time. That would be great. 1 week is sufficient. It's a full week probably. 2 weeks would be a good goal.
Well, one of my hopes is to increase the communication between myself, the city council, and the directors. So 2 weeks is probably enough time to accomplish that, and 1 week probably isn't.
Fair enough. I need the June date if possible. Like July wouldn't work for me on that date proposed.
I will be honest, the June date is going to be difficult to achieve. Not impossible, just difficult. Be brutally honest, this is, the more time we have to prepare, the better budget you're going to get. We can do it here, but I can't guarantee, for instance, 4 months to look for savings on those departments that you talked about in the Public Works. This would give us 2 months, so the opportunity to delve in and look for savings is a little harder to find than in the other one, but still we would come up with a very similar budget in the end.
Madam Mayor, I mean, I want you diving in, which I know you will. And so whatever savings we can, provide these citizens of Nampa. So I'm in favor of the extension.
Yeah, and it's not a significant amount of time, but it does give us a little more chance to make sure that what we deliver to you for review has the best we can offer.
4 years in a row, we did it in early June, I believe. Last year, messed up my vacation. I relied on this date. I'll have to be here. It'll mess up my 1 week vacation again. So that's a personal note.
I have a question. Bruce, if we moved it to the week of the 15th through the 19th of July, would that work for your vacation? Because I want to respect that.
I appreciate that. I know that's a selfish motive on my part.
Nope,
The week of the 15th is fine.
the week of the 15th is fine?
And Madam Mayor, that's during the daytime, so even though the Snake River is at evening, right? So we're talking about getting done, so can get to service clubs and so on by 4:30 or 5. Okay.
We could do that. I could certainly accommodate that.
That would give us a lot of time. You know, the biggest thing is that this is the first time we're doing budget in the Tyler system, which is different. And also Doug is just, I think, how long have you been on the ground?
4.5 weeks.
4.5 weeks,
Yeah.
right.
Well, that's enough time.
Oh, hey, I'm ready to go.
He's doing amazing, and I'm really appreciating his presence, but.
It's a wonderful job. I do appreciate it, so thank you for that.
So
and
does that work with other schedules, though?
What were the confirmed dates?
Well,
Or
it would, the
the,
week of the 15th through the 19th, but you, council could say which days of the week they would opt for that week.
Madam Mayor, real simple, are there any other conflicts with vacation schedules for that time?
Anybody have?
It's not a conflict for me.
For clarity then, July 15th through the 19th, how many days within that time frame? Just 2? Okay,
Similar to last year's schedule,
okay.
we do.
As long as we don't slip to the following week, I'm fine.
No,
And then
we
we're-
can't. We can't slip the following week.
Okay.
We won't permit it.
And nothing in May as far as from the council perspective?
No.
Okay,
Not at this
I'm good
aspect.
then.
But what it would do is if it would make your review process easier, we could still hold the June 21st date. To hold to that, you'd have an extra week to look at the budgets, if that would help Councilman Scoggin your vacation, so you
Yeah, that's
actually had
fine.
time to take your vacation. We could probably accommodate that as well.
That'd be great. Either way.
So is the will of the council to do, last year I believe we did a Monday, Tuesday. The only thing that happens on Monday, Tuesday is the pancake breakfast out, so we would need to do that early, and then whoever wants to participate in the pancake breakfast for the rodeo is that Monday, Tuesday morning, where the 4-H'ers serve breakfast.
You talking July 15th, 16th? There is an NDC meeting on the 16th, and we start at 8 o'clock in the morning. Is it 8 or 8:30? Forget.
8 o'clock.
8 o'clock.
Yeah.
So how about a 17, 18?
That won't work for me. I've got again, my Wednesdays are tough for me with the ongoing meetings I have at NNU on Wednesday mornings.
How about a Monday, Monday, you know what, that's a council day.
Yeah.
I don't know if we want to do,
That'd be a long day.
Where are we able to do it Thursday, Friday, Mayor?
We can shift possibly the NDC meeting,
That would be, I would be in favor of that.
but
Councilman
I'd have to be
Everett.
late for the Wednesday morning then, if you do Wednesday or Tuesday, Wednesday.
well, we could start late on Wednesday.
We could,
Okay, I could be in by 10.
yeah.
Give me your proxy vote.
Okay. We don't want to raise our budget at all, so flatline it. Well, I'm good.
So 16, 17? Is that what you're saying?
That's what I'm hearing, and on the 17th, we will probably move our start time back a little bit to a 10 a.m. start. But on the July 16th, let's go with, I think what we did last time, and you may have it on here already, 8 till noon break. And maybe we won't take an hour-and-a-half break.
Yep.
Right? I think that's what we did last time. We didn't take the break. We'll grab lunch, do a short, and just keep moving through.
Yep.
I don't mean to be too much of a slave driver, but I also want to get as much done as we
Please.
can on that
Be-
day.
be a slave
Be a
driver.
slave, okay.
Is Amy still here?
No.
Okay.
So, Madam Mayor, Beth is here. Is there any challenges? I mean, the Chairperson Bills was here, is he not, as far as changing the NDC meeting?
Just to post it.
Post it. Very good.
So do you want your office to, well, somebody needs to set that up. Well,
We'll set
there's
it.
the clerk right there. Okay, so if we can get that switched to either the 23rd, if we want to keep it on Tuesday, or the 9th. Does it matter to you, Darrell?
Well, I just lost you, so
July the
clarification.
9th, July the 9th or the 28th or 3rd for the NDC meeting. Currently, it's on the 16th.
That would be fine. I'm going to be gone the week of July 4th week. So that's before, prior
That's
to
the
that. So
week.
I am good, answer to your question.
Well, let's just shift it back then to the 23rd, and that way it's not an issue.
As long as the chair's available.
Yeah.
Right, you'll have to check with
Check with
David
Doc-
Bills,
David
right?
Bills. Sorry.
Okay, so it sounds like it's July 16, 17?
With a late start on the 17th.
Yes.
Good deal.
Good.
All right.
What else do you have for us?
Nothing other specific other than to put reference to my efforts to have strong communications with all parties and very clear communications. That takes a little more time to make it work right, rather than using a hammer or a sledge to force the budget down. But you end up with a better product in the long run, which is why we're trying to give you the extra weeks you need here. And I'm trying to work very much hand in hand with the department heads and the directors to share this information and make sure that if there is a prioritization we need to communicate back to them about budget changes, we do that in a timely manner. That's kind of my promise to you and to the department heads, to be open and communicative on this.
Thank you, Doug.
Thank you.
So that concludes the staff report portion of this item, and I believe Councilman Skog had some comments on this item.
Thank you, Madam Mayor. Fellow council members, last year, we were new council, mayor, we're trying to get to know each other on budget, and we discussed what to do beforehand, maybe some guidelines for the director and different directors. And we didn't really set a percentage of the budget, 3%, 2%, 1%, which we've done, in my experience, in the past years. And this year, I like the idea of setting a target to reach rather than just seeing the budget come forward, and because that's worked in the past and pretty well. I'd like to see us, if you're in agreement, whatever percentage, but I'd like to see us agree to direct the budget director and directors to come forward with a 2% budget increase rather than 3 or 1, with the understanding we continue the process. I think it'll be the 6th year of 1% for streets, 5th or 6th year. So we keep our streets program going, progressing to where we're going to catch up. There's a good plan there already. The details of the budget we work out when we come together. If there's some urgency, we can move it up to 3%. If we find lots of savings and the money's rolling in from taxes, we can lower it to 1% or 0. But if we set that target and the mayor works with the department heads to come in at 2%, then that gives us a fiscally conservative target to hit. And so I'd like to do that.
So, Madam Mayor, discussion, I'm in favor of that, Councilman Skog, as long as, and you clarified 1% for sure on streets, that we will.
That's been our tradition.
We'll hold that, okay.
May I make a comment about, sorry, I'm all in favor of setting targets and in setting goals. That gives us, the finance team and the department has direction with which to move. I'm wondering if during the next couple of weeks I could take time to look at more effectively the revenue streams that are coming in, to get an idea what we're going to have, if 2% is going to be enough, or if 2% is going to give us, make it a really tight proposition in order to meet the various priorities we have. And I was wondering if you could delay that decision on 2% until I get the next couple of weeks to look at the revenues and see what do they look like they're going to come in like. To give you guys the whole point is to give you guys better information to make a more informed decision. I'm not saying 2% is bad. I'm saying I don't know what the rest of the numbers look like.
I'm comfortable with going forward on the 2% now and challenging you to hit that target with us.
Is there any additional discussion? So Councilman Skog and I have had this discussion, and I do appreciate the fact, because we're aligned in the fact that we want to really be good stewards of the citizens' tax dollars, and the goal has been to bring down the levy rate. So as we look at putting a budget together, I'm going to be looking at the priorities we established. So I think as a council, we said public safety, infrastructure, streets, and economic opportunity. Our citizens said public safety or safety, and infrastructure and traffic mitigation, and then it went to education. I mean, it kind of shifted from the most recent survey. I think my commitment is that we're going to go and I love the presentation we had tonight. We're going to be good stewards. We're going to do everything we can. If we can't, then what I'm going to ask is that we come back. But I think what you're saying is if you can't do it, let's say we need police officers and we can't fit it in, then we'll come back and we'll give that to the council so the council can make that decision. I think that's what I hear you saying.
Yes, we're open to change, but let's target that.
Let's set a
2%.
goal.
A goal, yes.
Set a goal. Okay, so, and then let me ask another question. As we move, I want to ask, how did the process go last year? Because last year, we put together a budget, and then we came in and we presented that budget, and so this year it would be a 2% budget. We presented it to council. In some ways, that works really well because we just do a lot of hard work and we figure it out and we bring it to you. Did you feel like that worked for you? Would you like us to go through the process again? We are giving opportunity and building in time for you to have discussions with finance, discussions with directors in the process. But is that how you would like us to structure, similar to what we did last time where we have presentations from the big budget directors to council, and then you can ask questions and we just present to you the budget? Is that?
Yeah, Mayor, Council, yeah, I agree with a target at 2. I think it's just natural for government to start with the highest number possible, and we don't want to start. If state allowed us to take 6% every year, we'd probably be starting at 6% most cities, and so. You know, I think 2 is a good target, and I trust that Doug will tell us if it's really challenging, and we can look at that data and we can arm wrestle on what we need to do above 2, and that becomes a subjective decision of the council. We're elected to make those tough decisions. I think last year we ended up at 2.75, and you presented a 3, and there was motions made in the budget workshop where. You know, there were some things that I thought we should cut that didn't get cut. We took votes, and there were some things that got funded that were in the request that weren't part of the budget, and there were some things that were taken out. So that's kind of what the budget workshop is. And I know that we don't all see eye to eye in the budget workshop. There's some votes that were a little bit different. So I think that's where we kind of do all the arm wrestling to make those subjective calls. So that was the first year. I thought that was okay. I just want to say something based on something that was said earlier about VRT. A 4% increase, and I don't know if it's appropriate to chime in right now, but just kind of a heads up. I support VRT, but I have a problem when they're making a request that exceeds what our when they're asking for a percentage increase that's greater than what we're even doing for our own city employees. That's just more a principled problem when they're not considering fare analysis increases. So that's just maybe my 5 cents. Maybe that's not the appropriate time to do that, but I know that maybe that was a surprise when we did cut the VRT amount a little bit, but they decided to give their employees a raise, and then they're handing us a bill. And I just had a problem with that because the raise that they gave their employees, even if it was justifiable, exceeded a percentage that we're able to give our own employees. And so I just had a problem with sort of a separate entity just making increases and just handing us a bill without considering fare increases. So VRT wants to do a 2% increase to help bridge the difference. I think that that's a reasonable compromise, but I just wanted to state that. Yeah.
Mayor, thank you. Councilman Hogaboam, at the meeting today, they are looking at fare rate analysis and possible increases in fare boxes. And there was a lot of discussion about, in the presentation, having the data and the answers. And the mayor very eloquently asked some questions today that needed to be asked to really encourage them to get the information that they need to have when they come before not only our council, but the other municipalities.
Mayor Kling, if I could, I agree with Senator. I agree with Councilman Skog. No, Skog. Because I think we do have to have some kind of a starting point. And I'm going to rely on Doug to go up or down on it, but I think that's a good idea, and I agree. The process we'd had last year was a learning experience for me, but I'm used to it now. And so I enjoyed it, I learned a lot, and I don't see a problem continuing in that direction.
Good. So, and my real question is really about process. Is there something you need done differently? And Councilman Haverfield.
Well, Bruce and I, this is our 5th year, and so for the first 2 years, I think it was, we saw the alternate of not having a balanced budget brought to us. And it was really a breath of fresh air that we got when a balanced budget was brought. The benefits are a team approach to the financing package. So all departments are working together for the common good instead of coming before council and then with their hands out asking for what they can get. And so I'm 100% behind a balanced budget. The approach of having a 2% cap, if we can keep it at that, I appreciate that because I think that's fiscal responsibility that we're showing as leaders in the community.
Well, I can promise to tell you what 2% will give you, and then prioritize the remainder and let you, based on the information, make the decisions where you want to go.
Yeah, and I think that's what we got last year, and it will work that way.
Perfect. Okay, so we'll do the process as we did last year. And then this is I would assume this is an action item. Is this a vote?
Yes.
Okay. So with that said, would someone like to make a motion?
Fellow council members, I move that we direct the mayor, finance director, and city staff and department heads to present a budget at a 2% increase or less, with 1% of that designated to our streets program.
Second.
Okay, it's been moved and seconded. Is there any further discussion?
Just a point of clarification, the 2% is the property tax portion.
Yes.
Just in the motion, because sometimes the budget total will go up based on expected grants, and I know that's confusing for the public.
Thank you, Councilman Hogaboom. Very important.
Okay.
Mm-hmm.
Yes.
Thank you. Any further discussion? Roll call.
Rodriguez?
Yes.
Brunner?
Yes.
Hogaboom?
Yes.
Levi?
Yes.
Haverfield?
Yes.
Skog?
Yes.
And Madam Mayor, just off the point, but since the VRT was brought up, I appreciate you and Councilman Levi as far as, and please, they've done better, but please have them come with data. That's been my personal, really trouble spot with VRT is they've not brought in the data. So I don't want to sit here and have to listen to them again if they don't bring in data. Mm-hmm. And I would just as soon, there again, I don't like to get personal, but I'd just soon not be hearing from the director. I've not been impressed, and I would just, the other lady, I'm sorry, I'm not remembering her name, but she is much more detailed and much better presenter and detailed person than what I've experienced with the director. Okay, thanks.
Mayor, may
Yes.
I address Councilman Brunner?
Yes.
Councilman Brunner, I really appreciate what you're saying because it is frustrating. We feel like our questions are not being answered, and we feel like the data that isn't being collected or presented, it should be, and we don't understand where is the disconnect. And I know I've sat down with their director several times and staff, and I have voiced that very concern. I said, if you're going to come back before us and you really want us to hear what you have to say, you're going to have to bring data. You're going to have to bring that fare box information, and you've got to present what you're presenting to us with confidence. I also am setting up appointments with the Chairman Dale, and also, oh goodness,
Councilman Clegg?
Councilman Clegg, thank you, regarding those issues as well, and asking him, what is the deal here? Because we always feel like there's, the little simple things can't get done. They're not getting accomplished, but yet we're being asked to increase our giving. And so that, I really hear what you're saying, and I've been
Anyway,
frustrated
again, I
with it as
appreciate
well.
the two of you working on this, and I'm sure it'll be improved. Thanks.
I second, third, good data and correct data, because last time there was a presentation, I didn't mean to embarrass the gentleman, but the numbers, the math was wrong. And I pointed it out, and a bunch of people are like, they weren't saying I was mean, honestly, I was having cognitive dissonance because the math was wrong, and that's what his full-time job is. That's what he's spending 40 hours a week to do, and he comes before us with a presentation that's off, and it's like.
Cognitive what?
Dissonance. Yes, so.
That's what I thought you said.
Yeah. Anyhow, yeah, they need to do a good job, and I don't want an adversarial relationship with them, but it's just disappointing. It's hard to give them more when their math's wrong. So, yeah.
That's pretty impressive for 5 to 9.
And just for clarity, I actually told them today that as this motion came forward in the 4%, that it's highly unlikely that we're going to support a 4%, so that they knew right up front because of where we were going on our budget. So, okay, so that concludes our new business items. We've worked through the public hearings. We're moving now into unfinished business. And the next item we have is 7.1 on the agenda, and this is the first reading of an ordinance for creation of sidewalk LID 167, and it is requested to pass under suspension of rules.
An ordinance established by creating a local improvement district number 167 for the Nampa Canyon County, Idaho, for the purpose of constructing improvements to the city's sidewalks, pedestrian ramps, drive approaches, curbs, gutters, and others related street improvements in the district, providing for the kind of character of the proposed improvements, providing that the said district shall be considered a modified district pursuant to Section 50-1705 Idaho Code, describing the boundaries of said district and the property therein to be benefited by the improvements to be made, providing for the total estimate cost and expense of improvements to be levied and assessed against the said lots and lands to be benefited by the said improvements, providing for an issuance of bonds and payments of the costs and expenses of said improvement assessed against the said lots and lands, providing for the appointment of the city engineer to prepare the necessary plans and specifications for the improvements hereby ordered, and the preparation and the filing of an assessment roll of local improvement district report pursuant to the provisions of sections 50-1712 Idaho Code, providing for procedures for the filing and certification of notice of hearing and confirmation of said assessment rolls, and for the notice and payment of assessment installments so confirmed, creating certain funds and dockets, providing for severability, and providing an effective date.
Mayor Kling, I'd make the motion to pass the ordinance for the creation of sidewalk LID 167 under suspension of rules.
Second.
Any discussion? Roll call.
Rodriguez?
Yes.
Hogaboom?
Yes.
Levi?
Yes.
Skog?
Yes.
Brunner?
Yes.
Haverfield?
Yes.
Item 7.2 is an action item, and this is the first reading of ordinance for annexation and zoning to light industrial at 0 Cherry Lane. It's parcel number R308-39011A0 for construction of a warehousing facility, tax ID 03066. It's a 24.39 acre portion of the south half of the southeast quarter section of 4 T3N R2WB-M for Richard Evans, ANN-00109-218, and the public hearing was held on 2/19 of 19, and it is requested this passes under suspension of rules.
An ordinance determining that certain lands commonly known as 0 Cherry Lane lying the west of Northside Boulevard, comprising approximately 24.39 acres, more or less, lay contiguous to the city limits of the city of Nampa, county of Canyon, state of Idaho, and that said lands should be annexed into the city of Nampa, Idaho, as part of the IL zone, declaring said lands by proper legal description as described below to be part of the city of Nampa, Canyon County, Idaho, directing the city engineer and planning and zoning director to add said property to the official maps of the city of Nampa, Idaho, repealing all ordinances, resolutions, orders, and parts thereof in conflict herewith, providing an effective date, and directing the clerk of the city of Nampa to file a certified copy of the ordinance and the map of the area to be annexed with the Canyon County, state of Idaho, and the Idaho State Tax Commission pursuant to Idaho Code Section 63-215.
Do I have a motion?
Mayor Kling, I'd make the motion to pass that ordinance as read under suspension of rules.
I'll second that.
Discussion? Roll call.
Brunner?
Yes.
Hogaboom?
Yes.
Levi?
Yes.
Skog?
Yes.
Rodriguez?
Yes.
Haverfield?
Yes.
Our last item on the agenda this evening is a discussion on panhandling. And I just have to say, I am so sorry this is last on the agenda. It is unfinished business is now at the end, and so, sorry, it's been a late night and a wait. So as we begin this discussion, this is not an action item, it's a discussion item. I do want to say I had a great meeting with Kenton Lee, really appreciated the discussion. You each have an email letter that he has provided to us. Because it was given to you tonight, and I know it's late, I'm going to read this very quickly out of courtesy. My name is Kitten Lee, and I'm a lifelong Nampa resident currently residing at 13317 Peaceful Way here in Nampa. I'm writing this letter to share my disappointment with aspects around the process of the October decision to create and post anti-panhandling signs around town. I recognize that I disagree with the overall theory behind the anti-panhandling signs, and I know that with virtually every decision the City Council makes, there are people that will disagree with it. You can never please everyone, and I understand that. But I would like to share 3 areas of process of this decision that I believe could be improved for future decisions, especially decisions that affect those challenged by poverty. The first one is that from conversations surrounding the issue, it appears to me that no actual panhandlers were interviewed about their use of donated dollars or why they were panhandling. I could be wrong about this, but from my vantage point, the main group involved in this issue, local panhandlers in Nampa, were not spoken to. I don't think it is best practice when making decisions. I would encourage the City Council to take time and effort to go to the source when trying to understand a difficult decision. With the number of daily panhandlers in Nampa being less than 20 or so, probably far less from my personal experience, and very visible as they asked for money on the side of the busy roads, I was disappointed that they were not contacted, surveyed, or interviewed concerning an issue that directly involved them. Number two, I would also recommend that the City Council take time and effort to involve key stakeholders in areas of their expertise, especially when making actions that involve people challenged by poverty. Working with the poor can be extremely difficult, and even those in social work and nonprofit professions struggle to find success in helping the most vulnerable in our community. I was disappointed that the City Council simply tasked Chief Huff and the Nampa PD, who do an amazing job with their law enforcement work, with figuring out the signs after they were approved. Couldn't a group of social workers and nonprofit leaders from around town be brought together to help with the communication of these signs? And possibly from the wealth of experience and knowledge from that kind of gathering, maybe even more helpful communication and additional solutions could have sprung forth. If something is worth doing, it is worth doing the right way. I would recommend that anytime decisions are made that affect the most vulnerable, those who work with those populations should be consulted and involved in the process. And third, I believe it is fair to say that legality around panhandling has been murky, at least from my vantage point. It does not seem clear whether someone is allowed to panhandle in the city legally or in what form or in what areas. I'm disappointed that it took a citizen like myself to point this out and ask these questions. Why didn't the City Council take more time to dig deeper into this issue and discover the legal nuances before making their decision? From an outsider's perspective, it seems like this all happened too quickly. I know the City Council has many issues to decide on and a very busy agenda with many meetings going late into the night, but I would hope that future decisions can be given more time and attention to be fully understood, especially those decisions that deal with how our city treats those challenged with poverty. Thank you for all the various chances to express my opinions on this issue. I love Nampa. I appreciate the work of the City Council. I know that I have learned a lot through the process with this specific issue. I hope we can all learn and grow so that we can be the best leaders possible to steward Nampa into the best future possible for all people in our community. So this evening, the discussion that we have before us is just coming back. As I mentioned, I appreciated my conversation with Kenton, and I think there are two areas that stood out to me. One was really trying to understand the legal aspect because there has been a lack of clarity. And so I've asked Mark Hilty to please speak to the legal side so that we all understand the legal side. The other side that for me, you know, when you listen and learn, and I realized that for me, the next time I would probably say, let's pause and get some of the community buy-in, because sometimes it isn't what we do, but how we do it. And so we've had a number of responses on the panhandling signs, and we've had, I don't know, I mean, it could be equal, it could be a little heavier on one side, it could be divisive, and that's not what we want, because the one thing that I see in our community is that everybody cares. We do not want to marginalize the homeless, those in need, but we also want to protect our community. And the people that have spoken out, and we've had a number of, and I'll let council can speak to this maybe after Mark speaks, we've had a number of people reach out to council, and we've got a number of emails that have come into the office that do support the signs and the direction of please keep the signs and support that, because we really don't want, you know, to encourage, we don't want our community to go a different direction. And so we've heard a lot of comment in that regard. And then we've also heard the comment that don't support the signs. That said, we try to make good decisions. And, you know, in life, you never intentionally make a decision that's not a good decision. And so I appreciated Ken's comments about sometimes it's not what you do, but how you do it, that maybe our process was fast. And so I respect and I appreciate those comments. I'd first like to turn this over to Mark Hilty. And Mark, would you please share with us the legality side of panhandling?
Certainly. Thank you, Mayor. In my opinion, there's two provisions of law that are relevant to this issue. The first one is a Nampa City Code provision, and it is Section 611, defining disorderly conduct. And I'll just read a portion of that. The relevant part of that ordinance provides, every person is guilty of disorderly conduct when he accosts other persons in any public place or in any place open to the public for the purpose of begging or soliciting alms, which I think is a fair description of what we've been referring to as panhandling. So that's a city code provision. There's also a state statute. This is 49709. This is in the chapter of the state code that deals with motor vehicles, regulation of roadways and so forth. And I'm reading 49709, subsection 2, and I'll read again just the relevant part of that. No person shall stand on a highway for the purpose of soliciting contributions from the occupant of any vehicle. And there is an exception if the person is authorized to do so in writing by the local authority having jurisdiction over the highway. And I think it's relevant to that provision that we understand the definition of highway. So again, the relevant language I'm reading is, no person shall stand on a highway for the purpose of soliciting contributions from the occupant of any vehicle. Highway is defined as the entire width between the boundary lines of every boundary lines of every way publicly maintained when any part is open to the use of the public for vehicular travel, with jurisdiction extending to the adjacent property line, including sidewalks, shoulders, berms, and rights-of-way not intended for motorized traffic. So that's the ordinance, that's the statute. I'm happy to try to answer any questions you might have about the law.
Council, questions, comments?
Oh, man, I mean, I'll just, maybe Chief can reiterate, although it's been done several times. I think, when I had a meeting with you and Kitten, several weeks ago, I think the ordinance is there, in my opinion. That's my personal opinion. But what was said was pretty much that you were not going to have the man-woman power from a police force to enforce this. And I don't know if that's changed or if that's still from a several week ago conversation, if that still is.
I'd like, before you answer that question, I'm going to make a comment.
Okay. Yeah.
And that is, if we need you to enforce that, I'm going to ask you to enforce it.
Okay.
Okay?
Sure.
That's the way it is.
Right.
I mean, if we need it, and I understand you don't have the manpower, and I so respect the work done, but if there's an occasion that we need it done, we're going to ask you to help.
Sure. Just, can I clarify, the Press Tribune is?
Not here.
Not here anymore.
They're watching, though.
So, okay, so I had sent them a email, so we had given some bad information under the Nampa City Code that we hadn't issued any citations for panhandling in the last 3 years. It was an article that ran about a week ago, I believe, in the paper. They looked at under the 611. So I had the records folks at the police department look under the state statute 49709 subsection 2. And just for clarification, we've written 62 citations in the last 3 years for that state code for panhandling. So just to clarify you guys, because I'd given you some bad information prior to. So
it has been enforced from a state code
That was from
standpoint.
January 1st of 2016 under that code. And under the Nampa City Code, the 611 subsection B, or section B under that code, we've written, I believe it was 1 citation in 3 years.
Mayor, if I could clarify, but Chief Huff, the main priority that you follow the rules is the state, right? The state codes.
Yes.
You don't normally follow the city codes, correct?
Well, not necessarily. Well, under this particular incident, obviously, if we're
Right,
writing,
right.
62 to 1, yes. But, the disorderly conduct, I believe it has 6 or 7 subsections under it, that
Right,
we could follow.
right.
But there's mainly the B and C that would fall under the panhandling ordinance.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you.
Thanks. Put you on the spot. Appreciate it.
So that said, and I don't mean to put Chief on the spot, because I totally understand how busy they are and their priorities. I want to make sure that we don't make decisions based upon, sometimes if there is a state statute or an ordinance, I would not make a decision based on whether we have the manpower today to enforce or not enforce. To me, if we need it enforced, we may ask for it to be enforced at a given time. That said, though, I have a heart for our homeless population and the care that we give. And Kenton and I had a really interesting conversation that I so appreciated, and it was the fact that, you know, really, who are the signs for, right? Because, you know, you can drive along and someone's panhandling under a sign. But really what we want is if there is a need in our community, we really ought to have a sign that says, where do you get help? And that thought hadn't really occurred to me until he mentioned that, because if someone's driving down the road and they're 1 inch from homelessness, we're saying no panhandling, give to your local charity, but where does that person go to get help? And so it's an interesting thought that maybe underneath our signs, we should have a small sign that says, if you need help, where do you call, where do you go? Because we really want to make sure that we care. And I don't mean to be harsh when I'm saying I'd ask the chief. It isn't about that. It's about even the no smoking ordinance, right? We didn't do one because we said we couldn't enforce it, but you can't ever enforce it if you don't have one. So why do you have a sign? Because you're asking someone not to smoke, but you don't have an ordinance that says they can't smoke. And so we've gotten into this interesting place of going around in what we're trying to accomplish based on whether we have manpower and whatever. And it just makes it difficult. But anyway, I just wanted to comment on those comments, and we want to make sure that we care for our people. So.
Madam Mayor, fellow council members, appreciate those comments. The purpose of the signs is to deter panhandling. That's it. If you can't find a free meal in Nampa, there's an issue with the person, not because of the generosity of our community. People here will provide you a meal. There's lots of places to go. We'll provide you help. These signs aren't aimed at the homeless. They're aimed to stop the panhandling because of the crime associated with panhandling that we've discussed before. But be that as it may, I appreciate the update from Chief Huff. We had over 60 citations in the past 3 years from our Nampa City Police, but also we've had several from the Idaho State Police. When they go through, they see it as a time, place, and manner issue for safety of traffic a lot of times. And so that's important. It's against the law. It's not murky. It's against the law to panhandle. You can enforce it up to whatever level you want. I've personally, as a councilman, asked Chief Huff to start enforcing it more, but that's just me as one councilman. We have a petition here from 35 people. The top name is Judy Moore, who testified here saying, please keep the signs up. We support the signs. We left it as a council to the chief to put the wording on the signs as he saw fit best. So I don't really want to get in and start picking colors and things as a council. You can if you want, but I'd like to just leave it up to him. And we're elected to make decisions. People trusted each of us to make decisions so they don't have to come in and weigh in on every aspect that we do. If you want to do that, then just send out voter cards for every item for every night that we meet. I trust you, as I voted for you, to make the decisions, and this is a decision we made. Stick by it. It's a law and order issue, and I thank you for your vote on those signs.
So, Madam Mayor, just question, and I really appreciate your comments, because there has to be some answers, and maybe some of these folks have received that information, some not. Is there any reason, I'm going back to you, Chief Huff, I'm putting you on the spot again. Is there any reason, and I'm not saying you're the one that needs to write this up. Maybe Kenton can write it up, or whoever we want to write it up. But as far as if there's a panhandler out there where you give warnings on traffic, correct?
Correct.
So what's the reason we can't give a panhandler a verbal warning, hand them a sheet, make sure that their literacy is such, which I think in most cases they're very smart, but that they can read it, and they have the options with phone numbers, addresses, places to call, and then no ticketing at all at that point in time. And then your officers, I don't know if you identify with phone photos or what, but then if they're back at it after the warning, then that's when the citation would be given.
I mean, it's been a long time time since I've been on the road, but doing that. But I believe they do they will give warnings a lot of times, and it'll be in the call note. So if I ran your name in there, it would say, police made contact with Mr. Bruner such and such date, and they warned him for panhandling
Right.
or whatever. I mean, that's already being done on a
Yeah.
lot of cases. I don't believe there's a paper that we.
Well, I think there should be information given to that person, so they have some choices if they haven't already looked into those choices. Anyway, that's just a suggestion.
Mayor, Chief, I just got an idea. I know your senior volunteers do the vehicles. Rather than take away from the law enforcement officers that are really too busy, do you think you could assign them to contact? Is that an idea?
I would prefer not to, just because they're unarmed and
Oh,
you don't know
okay.
who you're contacting.
Yeah, right. Okay, I agree.
Thank you.
Okay.
So one thought that I do have is that I would like to see if we have citizens and nonprofits that would be willing to reach out and do some of the work that Kenton suggested. And let's find out who our panhandlers are and what their needs are. And so I don't know if there's a nonprofit or if there's someone that would say, you know what, we'll do that. Because we want to ensure that their needs are met. And if there's a way that we can service as a community differently than we are today. And so to me, that's on the nonprofit side. That's a way to say, how do we help you? I think generally there's the consensus amongst the community that we, at least where I feel, we need to take care of our own. But if you've got some people that do not live here, that are transient, that are along the freeway, that's not, we don't want to be the destination, but we do need to take care of our own. So I know, Kenton, you have a comment, and I know it's not a public. I don't either. It's okay, so it's not, but afterwards, let's have a discussion. So as far as tonight, because it's not a public hearing, so, but. Pardon? There is no time to yield. Yeah, I'm sorry. So, yeah, because it's not a public forum tonight.
I have a few comments. The legality issue, I think we can debate whether it's prudential or not. Good people can disagree on the prudence of the sign, but the legality, as it's explained by legal counsel, I think satisfies my understanding of legality. I think some people interpret panhandling as just passively holding a sign, which is protected free speech, but the transaction of charity that's included within that then constitutes, it comes under the definition of soliciting charity and whatnot that Mr. Hilty read under the state statute. So we are not saying someone just holding a sign. Of course, the transaction is part of it. So I know some of the feedback I got is you're telling people you can't hold a sign, you're going to have free speech issues, and it's the statute is read as very clear that it involves the entire process. So the begging or soliciting, which includes the transaction on the public ways, is something that is regulated, and that's an existing law that we did not create at the city level. It already exists at the state level. So I appreciate that clarification. And then I've avoided really chiming in on the prudence issue because I think good people can disagree on that, and we could all have anecdotal testimony that we could present of pro and con on members of our community who have weighed in. I know that I've received some feedback that's been mixed, but some of it, including from a business owner that's near one of the signs, who has a very giving heart, who wants to help people in our community. He observed that someone was parking in his parking lot in a very nice new truck and would walk out where there's now a sign, and that person's not coming back anymore, and solicit. And this gentleman, the business owner, tried to have a conversation, offering help and support, but the gentleman was evasive about providing information about what needs he really has and how he's using the money. And the business owner wasn't trying to be interrogative. He's a very generous person, leaving their identity unnamed here. And it was tough for him, but he told this gentleman, you can't park in my parking lot anymore and go out there. And he said since the signs have gone up, he's noticed that it's not happening anymore. And so he's yeah, we can't make a definitive answer on how that person's using that money, but it's someone's free speech rights to be evasive and not give an answer about how they're using the money that they're receiving. And I know we can go back and forth with stories on both sides, but, you know, a decision was made, and as far as the prudence about helping the poor, if we're too generous a community, you actually incentivize and attract people who are trying to take advantage of generosity, and we don't want to enable that. And I know I'm also biased. I have family that's been affected by this issue, and there are reasons why sometimes you make a very difficult call to withhold money from a family member, and it's so across the country, and I've dealt with a lot of rescue missions and talking to people. It's heartbreaking when you're trying to help someone overcome addiction, and you're cutting off the enabling resources, and it's easy for them to go stand on the corner and get money. And I know that not everyone's doing that. I want to be clear that I'm not trying to demonize everyone that might have poverty issues, but a lot of the feedback that we also received from some members of even the homeless community says this is not good for even the homeless community, because when it's too generous, you could also offer someone work, and some people have declined work because you're making more panhandling than what's offered in the work. And again, I know this is anecdotal, and part of the concern I have is we can all tell our stories and go on back and forth with a lot of stories about how to help people. We're committed to helping people. My wife is very generous. She's a refugee family that came to this country because if you work hard, you have an opportunity to succeed. My mom came to this country. We come from a family of poverty, and we've also received the generosity of other people who have helped invest in our lives. That's part of social uplift. And so I think the programs that are designed specifically to help people that are seeking that help is the best way to help people in our community. And so I just, it is an emotional issue. So it's one of the reasons I haven't tried to chime in too much on it, because I know that it's deeply emotional for us as a family. And so, but we want to see people helped in our community, and if we're deterring that incentive that people are too generous in one sense, and it disincentivizes someone sometimes from working, and it enables addiction. And if there are people that are being helped by the money, there's nothing else in our community apart from the money. I'm pretty confident in the generosity of our community as far as resources for housing, food, assistance, and just for the record, 211 is a good resource for people. If they look at the portal of 211, there's drug addiction resources, to housing assistance, to utility assistance, to job assistance, to assistance on every single level of core charity that I can possibly think of that's accessible and available. And I would charge the police maybe to have a resource card that can be handed out if there is someone that you discern is in a situation of true poverty that needs a place to stay the night. So sorry that was more than a few minutes, but I just, for the record, wanted to communicate, because I know there's a lot of interest in our community on this matter. So thank you.
Thank you. Councilman Haverfield?
Really quick. I'm not trying to belabor the point, but when we made the decision, the assertion was made earlier in the evening that we made it too quickly. I think the vote was 6-0 in favor of the signs going up. I took the time to talk to a few individuals that work in this industry, especially. One was Reverend Roscoe. He does not support panhandling because of the behavior. Behavior modification is helping them get a job, helping them to help themselves, not to rely upon others to support them. So I think every one of us here have a heart for the homeless. Every one of us here volunteer in different areas. So the assertion made that we didn't have the context behind the decision we made was not an accurate description of what we went through and the time we spent to make sure that we were making the proper decision. So I just wanted that to be clear.
Thank you. You know, sometimes it just isn't readily evident, and so thank you. I appreciate your comment. So if there are no further comments from council, That concludes our unfinished business. Item 8 is on the agenda is just our pending ordinances, which requires no action. The next agenda item is an executive session. And actually, I just want to say thank you to you, thank you guys for your faithfulness. Thank you for your interest. I know it's hard not to necessarily get the answers that you really want, but I just appreciate the heart. We've had a lot of community feedback on this issue, so I thank you very much. So moving on to we do have two executive sessions, and so I would stand for a motion to adjourn, and I'll read both of these. To adjourn into executive session pursuant to Idaho Code 742061C to acquire an interest in real property which is not owned by a public entity. And 9.2 is a motion to adjourn into executive session pursuant to Idaho Code 742061J to consider labor contract matters authorized under Section 672345A, and that is 742006A, 1A and B Idaho Code.
I'll make the motion, Mayor.
Second.
Roll call?
Brunner?
Yes.
Hogaboom?
Yes.
Levi?
Yes.
Skog?
Yes.
Haverfield?
Yes.
Rodriguez?
Yes.